and shalom to the messenger group. Shabbat shalom. Yeah, I know y'all like that outro right there. All right, so again, some of y'all right here with us on YouTube and Facebook, and then some of y'all are in the private messenger group. All right, so Shabbat Shalom to everyone of you all. Today we'll be starting a reading from the book of Leviticus, chapter 27, verses 1 through 34. We'll divide the readings into three portions: verses 1 through 11, verses 12 to 22, and then verses 23 to 34, which is going to be 11, 11, and 13, 11, 11, and 12 verses. All right, so these chapters are going to deal with, these verses rather, are going to deal with, these verses are going to deal with whether or not, when you make a vow to Yahweh, and when you make a vow to Yahweh, and when you want to dedicate something to Yahweh, and we'll go into the system of it. All right, so let's get started with the first reader, Leviticus chapter 27, verses 1 through 11. 1 through 11.
Leviticus chapter 27, verse 1. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the sons of Yasharallah, and you shall say to them, a person who vows a vow to Yahweh, for instance, the value of his life. The value for a male shall be from 20 to 60 years of age. The value shall be 50 dirachmas of silver by the sanctuary standard. But for a female, the valuation shall be 30 dirachmas. Now, if it is from 5 to 20 years of age, the value of a male shall be 20 dirachmas, and of a female, 10 dirachmas. And from 1 month to 5 years, the value of a male shall be 5 dirachmas of silver, but of a female, 3 dirachmas. But if from 6 years and over, if the person is a male, the value shall be 15 dirachmas of silver, but in the case of a female, 10 dirachmas. And if he is base with regard to the value, he shall stand before the priest, and the priest shall assess him. In accordance with the strength of the hand of the one making the vow, the priest shall assess him. But if a gift to Yahweh be from the animals, from those that are being offered, if he gives these to Yahweh, it shall be holy. He shall not exchange it, either good for bad or bad for good. But if by exchanging he exchanges it, animal for animal, both that one and its substitute shall be holy. But if a gift to Yahweh is any unclean animal from those that are not brought, he shall set the animal before the priest. Verse 11.
Our next reader, verses 12 through 22. So we see that if you give an animal to Yahweh when you exchange it, you got to give what you gave originally, and your exchange has to be given too. All right, go ahead.
Leviticus chapter 27, verse 12. And the priest shall assess it, between good and between bad. And as the priest sets the value, so it shall stand. But if by redeeming he redeems it, he shall add 1/5 to its value. If a person consecrates his house holy to Yahweh, then the priest shall assess it, whether between good and between bad. And the priest, as the priest values it, so shall be fixed. So it shall be fixed. But if the one who consecrates it redeems his house, he shall add to it. He shall add to it 1/5 of the money of its value, and it shall be his. Now, if a person consecrates to Yahweh some of the field of his holding, then its value shall be in accordance with its seed, 50 drachmas of silver to a quart of barley seed. But if he consecrates his field from the year of release, according to its assessment, it shall stand. But if he consecrates his field later, after the release, the priest shall compute the price for it according to the years that remain until the year of release, and there shall be a deduction made from its assessment. Now, if the one who consecrates it redeems the field, then he shall add 1/5 of the money to its value, and it shall be his. But he shall not redeem the field, and should sell the field to another person. He shall no longer redeem it. But when the release has expired, the field shall be holy to Yahweh, as the land that has been set aside. It shall be the priest's holding. Now, if someone consecrates to Yahweh part of the field that someone has purchased, which was not a part of the field of his holding.
All right, verses 23 to the end. So, you might dedicate a house for Levites to live in when they're traveling. Or you might dedicate a house to your house so that pilgrims that are going to Jerusalem can stay at your house on their way to Jerusalem. Or you might dedicate a field so that the Levites can have crops that they can plant so that they can use it for their families and for different services that they may need inside the sanctuary or the tabernacle. So there's several reasons why you could dedicate something. Right, verse 23 to 34.
The priest shall sign to it the full amount of the value from the year of release, and he shall pay the value on that day, something sacred to Yahweh. And in the year of release, the field shall be given back to the person from whom he bought it, whose land holding it had been. And every assessment shall be by holy weights. 20 obols shall make a didrachma, and every firstling that may be born among your animals shall belong to Yahweh, and no one shall consecrate it, whether calf or sheep, it is Yahweh's. But if it is unclean quadrupeds, if it is of unclean quadrupeds, he shall make an alteration according to its assessment, and add 1/5 to it, and it shall be his. But if he does not redeem, it shall be sold at its assessed value. But nothing dedicated that person may dedicate to Yahweh which he owns, from human to animal, and from his field of holding, shall be sold or redeemed. Every devoted thing shall be holy of holies to Yahweh, and nothing that has been dedicated of human beings shall be redeemed, but by death it shall be put to death. Every tithe of the land from the seed of the ground and of the tree fruit is Yahweh's, it is holy to Yahweh. But if a person should by redeeming it redeem his tithe, he shall add 1/5 to it, and it shall be his.
Can somebody give me the gray notebook, please? The big gray notebook.
And every tithe of cows and sheep, and everything that may come to count under the rod, the tithe shall be holy to Yahweh. You shall not exchange good for bad, but if by exchanging and you exchange it, then its substitute shall be holy, it shall not be redeemed. These are the commandments that Yahweh commanded Moshe for the sons of Israel on the mountain Sinai. Kashwan Bar Yahweh Meshal Nashmi.
Kosher the body, how nice, how nice,
All Yahweh said, what we doing here?
all the hell said what we're doing here. All right, so here in this last section is important because it talks about tithes, and the tithes were 10% of what you brought in, 10% of what you got from your fields, what you got from your animals, anything that had life in it. It wasn't 10% of the hours that you worked. It wasn't 10% of your money. Now, over time, as we lost our agriculture, people may have started to say, because remember, everything shifted with the believers. When the believers in Hamashiach got kicked out of Jerusalem, and they had priests that went with them. Remember, they had Levites, but they didn't have a lot of land. So if they don't have a lot of land, now they probably shifted away to a non-biblical system, but something to be able to I think I need one that has all of the readings and stuff in it. To be able to support all of the priests and to be able to support all of the Levites that were among them, as well as to support a lot of the leadership that they had. All right. Support meaning when you're studying, remember when we look at in Sirach, we look at chapter 38, chapter 39, chapter 40, it tells you that you can't get wisdom by doing field work. You can't get wisdom by doing carpentry. You can't get wisdom by being a blacksmith. You get wisdom by dedicating your time to seeking wisdom, to seeking information, to seeking the true understanding, by seeking Yahweh, seeking the Holy Spirit to help you to get a better understanding of what needs to be done and what needs to be said. That's the way that we get wisdom. All right. So they had to have a support system. Now they might have had a field. All right. You read the history that a lot of times when a man was a man of wisdom, he had businesses and fields and stuff like that for people to work and make money. And everything that he produced in this particular system we're reading in Leviticus chapter 27, everything, 10% of everything went to the priests at Jerusalem, the priests and the Levites. All right, what's the next reading from Psalms? Did y'all read it this week? Nobody got no clue, huh? Well, we read chapter 89 last week, right? 20 to 34, is that right? Psalms chapter 89. I think 88 in the 88 in the Greek, right? Psalms 88. All right, we read we stopped at verse 34. Right? 20 to 34. Somebody pull up the readings from the calendar. What? What? I can't understand what you're saying. I'm already what? Amaria is. Okay. So the whole system is set up. Remember, everything we're reading centers around what? Yahweh and the temple and the priest. It's about you giving something outside of yourself, for the Most High. You giving something outside of yourself for the priest. And the first part of what we read is optional. All right. The second part of the last part we read about the tithes and everything, that's mandatory. You had to give the tithes. All right. You had to give the tithes. All right. So next reader, Chapter 89. Let's come up here and read. Chapter 89 or 88 in the Greek. 88 in the Greek Bibles, verses 39 and 53. Who's the next reader? All right, so 39 to 50, 39 and 53. Yeah, I might as well just bring the whole, when you finish, let's get the whole thing down here, which is the end of the chapter. So we were actually gonna start at 35. All right, that's what we're gonna start at, but it starts at 39. All right, it's right there. You know, so it's gonna be 89 in your King James version, but it's gonna be 88 in the Greek. Now let's get the window open more. Let's get the fan down here too. So stop at verse. Stop at the last verse, and start at verse 39.
Psalm chapter 88, verse 39.
Now remember, this goes into the Sabbath reading also because it deals with things that were rejected and things that were anointed, that were chosen. It deals with neighbors. It deals with enemies. It deals with a diminishing of the days of time of life, and we see all of those things addressed in the reading. We see different levels of the value of human life from 1 month to 5 years, and then from 5-6 years old to 20, and then from 20 to 60, and then from 60, 61 plus for male and female. And we see that the male life always had a higher responsibility to Yahweh to pay us a higher amount than the female. But we see that there was two genders, male, female, and then we had the age groups. So everything was categorized according to gender and according to age. And those are the two things that people struggle with now. People want to change their gender, and people want to, adjust their age. When you're younger, you want to be older, right? And then when you're older, you want to be younger, all right? And then you got males that want to be females, and then females that want to be males, but they could never be anything other than what Yahweh created them as. Even though we may get kind of confused, but there's always hope to go back to Yahweh and be who we are in Him. Are we a son of Adam or are we a daughter of Eve? And those first 7 verses really put it into perspective. It puts it into perspective. And if the person didn't have enough money, in verse 8, what did they have to do? If there were a female that, older female, and, she didn't have the 10 shekels, what does she have to do?
Bring an animal.
All right, so somebody read that verse 8 again. Read verse 8 real quick. Yeah, hurry up, read verse 8.
If he be poor
in
thy estimation, then he shall present himself
before the priest,
and the priest shall value him,
and the priest shall value him according to his ability. Go ahead.
That vowed shall the priest value him.
By what?
According to his ability, that vowed shall the priest value him.
All right. So the priest's going to value him and what he can pay. So if there was a problem with your gender and your age, and you couldn't meet the qualifications set inside the Bible, you had to go and talk to one of the most top spiritual leaders of Israel, the priest. You had to go talk to the priest. And then the priest told you what you need to do to be able to fit into that qualification and be able to keep your vow. The priest didn't say, okay, well, you're a man, but we're going to pretend or treat you as if you're a woman, or you're you're 45 years old, but we're going to treat you as if you're 60. Now they say, hey, you're 45. You're 45. You can't pay the 50 shekels. So what we'll do is we'll just have you, what can you afford? We'll have you pay 20 shekels or 30 shekels, not because you were younger or because you were a woman, but they dealt with you in the category that you were. And then they said, okay, let's make the payment according to what he can pay. Okay. And then he would eventually, hopefully be able to move toward an area where, he could pay what he was supposed to pay, but it may be something he had to mature into. All right, so this is the system that we had. So Yahweh was compassionate, but he didn't just make you, if you were a woman, he didn't just say, okay, you a man now. Or if you were 5 years old, he didn't say, okay, we're gonna treat you big for 5, so we're gonna treat you like you 10. No, the category you were in, that's where you stayed when the vow had to be made. Your father couldn't say, well, if my daughter gets healed, I'm gonna make this vow to Yahweh when she gets healed and pay this money. When she got healed, you couldn't say, well, when I made the vow, she was 5, but now she got healed, now she's 7, but I'm gonna pay when she was 5. You still had to pay according to the age she is, right? You couldn't switch it up. And you couldn't say, well, she was a girl, but now she's non-binary now. So let's go to the priest and see what we got to do. Priest look at you like you crazy. All right, priest look at you like you crazy. All right, go ahead. Let's go into Psalms.
Psalms 88, verse 39.
Uh-huh.
But you rejected and scorned. You postponed your anointed one. You overturned the covenant of your servant. You profaned the earth, his sanctuary. You destroyed all his fences. You placed his strongholds as cowardice.
See how this links up to the Torah reading? It talks about your land, which is determined by the boundaries. It talks about rejecting, which if you rejected an animal, when you got to the temple, you find out, oh, this animal has a problem. You couldn't take the animal away. You had to say, I'll be right back, priest. And you had to bring another animal to go along with that one. All right? Go ahead.
All those who traveled through the road plundered him. He became a reproach to his neighbors. You lifted high the right hand of his enemies. You made all his enemies cheerful. You turned away the help of his sword, and you did not help him in the battle. You deprived him from purification. You broke down his throne to the earth.
You see that? Deprive him from purification. All right? That means that when you're in the impure state, we have to make a resource available for people to be able to purify themselves, right? Water. Don't got to be hot water. Don't got to be cold water, but just water to be able to go from an unclean state to a clean state. All right? To purify yourself. All right, go ahead.
You diminished the days of his throne.
Mm-hmm.
You poured shame over him. How long, O Yahweh, will you turn away completely? Will your anger burn like a fire? Remember what is my actual being, for you did not create all the sons of men, of humans in vain. Who is the person who will live and not see death? Who will rescue his soul from the hands of Hades?
See, now it's going into that whole messianic theme, right? About the Messiah. We always see in the Psalms something written about somebody dying but being rescued from death, or dying but not staying dead, right? We always see that. Now remember, when you go back into verse 38 in your KJV, it talks about what? Read that again.
Who is the person who will live and not see death?
Mm-hmm. No, verse 39.
39.
Mm-hmm.
But you rejected and scorned it. You postponed your anointed one.
See, postpone your anointed one. So this is about what happened with the anointed one and the objections that were pushed against the anointed one. Now you look at this as a national anointed one of the 12 tribes, and we're looking at the person, the anointed one. All right. Now I want to say this too. Everybody needs to make sure that they know what is the next week's Torah portion and read it before the Sabbath, ideally on Sunday. We can read it together on Sunday, but that if we don't, that doesn't indemnify you of the responsibility to read it. That doesn't let you off the hook. Well, we were waiting for the study or the lecture about the Sabbath, but it never happened. Well, you responsible for your soul salvation. You know, I'm just a guide using the Bible to encourage you and to edify you and to give you exhortation. I'm I'm a man like you. I'm a human being like you. Okay. I put a little more time into living and learning what we're reading, but it's not nothing that you can't do on your own. And you don't have Hebrew Israelites, even Christian leadership, Jewish leadership telling you this. All right. I'm not nothing unique and significant or meaningful in the universe no more than you are. I got the same brain that you got. I got the same eyes that you got. I can read and understand and study. But my sincerity, my dedication, my seriousness, and yours can be the same. They can, CAN, be the same. So you have to take this as serious as you should and read this every week. And read the Bible every day. Read the Bible as often as possible. All right? Give up, you like soda, give up soda for a couple of days. You like eat 4 meals a day, give up a meal. If you don't have any health reasons, that diabetic or something where you got to eat a certain amount of food at certain times a day. So I'm not giving you health advice, I'm giving you spiritual advice. Pray more. You can pray anywhere. There's no verse that says you can only pray facing Jerusalem on your knees. It's the ideal prescription. But you can pray when you're jogging. You can pray when you're pushing a cart in the grocery store. You can pray when you're walking from the oranges to the mangoes. You can pray when you're in the shower. You can talk to Yahweh anytime. So what I want you to do is to develop more of a relationship with Yahweh that depends on you, not somebody else. Because Paul talks about, the scripture says what? Except you become as what? You should not enter into the kingdom of heaven. Except you become as a what? As a little child. But how long do you got to stay as a child? How long do you stay as a child? When do you mature in your own spirit to pick up, read, refrain, fast, and do all of these types of things so that you as an individual can grow individually? And if you grow individually, we grow collectively. You can't be, 15 years old and you still need somebody to wipe you because you just don't want to feel like learning how to wipe yourself. You're 15 years old, you go to the bathroom by yourself, you do your business, and you come out clean, right? Same thing with this word. Especially, you got all these resources in 2026 that we didn't have when we started this walk in January 1994. We didn't have all these resources. We didn't have no internet, all right? We had a concordance, and we had language books, and we had a Bible. You can ask AI anything now, they'll tell you the answer. Tell it to be objective. It'll give you some objective results. You can investigate and research anything if you know how to answer. It asks the question. And that's what I'm here to help you with. I can help you phrase your mindset and your questioning the right way to the right people so you get the right answer. Because you don't want to ask, because sometimes, I'm going to give you an example. Sometimes AI will say, it'll say, well, the Hebrew for this says this, but when they, in the Greek, they changed it and they said this, they modified it and they gave a different sense. And to the average person, that would sound correct. But to somebody that knows not just these books, but the history of when and when and who, you'll say, wait. You'll say, no, you got it wrong. Or you can say something like, you can be like, I don't think that's historically, chronologically correct. Whether you know it or not. Are you sure about that historically and chronologically? And it'll say, oh yeah, you're right to question that. The Greek did come before the current version of the Hebrew that we have now. So now you're training your AI to base everything on what the Greek says first in the Torah, then to look at the Hebrew, not to look at the Hebrew first. So I'm just giving you an example about how that little piece of information can open up a whole new world of understanding to you as you and your wife and your husband, your parents, your children sit reading and investigating and researching the word of Yahweh. Okay? All right, so let's pick up from where you was at in the, what was you at in the 50s? All right, so his soul is going to be rescued from hell. And this is very important to understand, Mazarka. Why? Because it's talking about somebody dying, somebody being rescued from hell. So somebody has died. And so far, the main character is the anointed one. So this is what we all, you can use whatever, yeah, there, whatever, you can shift, shuffle. You have, this is where we always, this is what we always want to be looking for. You always want to be looking for something about you and the Messiah in these books. Because the Psalms, and me and Masha kind of got into this a couple of days ago, and my sons, but we're living in the time of King David right now. What do I mean by that? I mean that the Most High made a covenant with David. It was the last living covenant that we see in our lives now. We're not in. It's the time between the Mosaic covenant, which was the fourth covenant, and the Davidic covenant, which is the fifth covenant. It's a buffer covenant, but it covers eternity. It's an eternal covenant, but it's not the eternal covenant. So since we're in the time of King David, the covenant that Yahweh made with David, remember, everything is happening in King David. King David's rulership, Hamashiach's first coming, Hamashiach's second coming, the rising of the kingdom of Israel, the fall of the kingdom of Israel, the restoration of the kingdom of Israel is all prophesied in the Davidic covenant, is it not? Did not Yahweh have all these conversations with David? So our captivities were in the covenant of King David. Slavery, all right? The great red dragon, the seven horns, England or the UK, Spain, Portugal, France, Belgium, okay? The Dutch, all of these, the Romans and the Greeks, all of these empires, seven main empires, are operating in the Davidic covenant. What are they doing? They're fighting against the Davidic covenant. They're fighting against the rise of the Messiah. They're standing in opposition. Why are they doing that? Where did that opposition come from? It came from Adam's covenant, when he partook of the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. There's always two ways. And then with Noah, righteousness. Then with Abraham, righteousness. Then with Moses, I set before you two ways, life and death. Two ways. David, do right or not do right. David did wrong. So when we're looking at these prophecies in the Psalms, you're always looking for key words. It may say anointed. It may say chosen. All right. It may say son. All right. But we're all looking for key words. That what that does is strengthen your faith in the Messiah, in Yahweh. That's why when we go into Revelation, chapter 12 and chapter 14, it tells you you got to have faith in the Messiah, the testimony of the Messiah, and keep the commandments. The commandments are never separated from belief in the Messiah. And Marsha and I had a conversation about this also with John chapter 5. It used to be one of my favorite verses to quote when I teach. John 5, verse 45 to 47. I don't think I said it at the time when I was talking to him. But that's one of the favorite verses because it shows you there's no opposition between Moses and the Messiah, that they're both working together. And anything opposing them is antichrist and anti-Mosaic. Anti-law is coming from the left-hand side. So that's where we always have this opposition. Even within the so-called Hebrew Israelite community, they oppose themselves by making excuses of why they don't have to keep the Mosaic obligation. They want to usher in, see, everybody wants David covenant to be fulfilled. Everybody wants the Messiah to come and to give judgment, but they ain't ready for that. They ain't ready for that. They think that because they don't eat pork, they're okay. I don't eat pork. I don't eat. What's the penalty in the Bible for eating pork? There is none. What's the penalty for working on the Sabbath? So you have more Hebrew Israelites working on the Sabbath, but hardly none of them eat pork. What phrase did Hamashiach give us about this? You do what, but do what? He said, you strain at a gnat, but you swallow a camel. Meaning you thinking you doing something small, tiny, that's gonna have no effect on you. All right? No effect on you. But then you got this camel and you're just swallowing it all, just eating up the camel. You're swallowing the camel. So you're putting emphasis on the wrong thing, but the big thing that you shouldn't be letting your body eat, you're doing that. Like the Sabbath is an eternal covenant that we see from Exodus chapter 31, verse 12 through 17, between Yahweh and the children of Israel forever. And I think that some of you, and I think part of the problem is that some of you, that are, 7 years old, 21, 19, 14, 13 going on 14, 18, you haven't really meditated on your own mortality, that your spirit will be separated from your body one day. All your thoughts and actions now are going to be brought up for investigation and judgment. And if you know to do good and you don't do good, it is sin. And if you engage in sin, you will go into a lake of fire forever. But you're distracted by what you want to or need to do on a daily basis. And that's why we got this book, to stay grounded daily. The scripture says what? In Ephesians 5:26, cleansed and sanctified by the washing of water, by the what? By the word. The word washes you. It washes your thoughts. If you ain't reading the Bible, if you ain't reading, let's not say, if you ain't reading the Sefer Kodesh, if you ain't reading the holy book, if you ain't reading the Sefer Redef Yisrael, the book of the testimony of Israel, what are you feeding your spirit with? All right, so So the Messiah, we're looking at these things in the Bible. We're looking at what is it saying. You're internalizing it. Why? Does Hamashiach live in you? He's supposed to be in you, right? He's supposed to be in you. Oh, but see, and this is the thing that people are so crazy. Your great grandmother died, you'll be like, oh, she's watching over us, right? But in your mind, in people's minds, Hamashiach is just somewhere dead somewhere. But your grandmother got the power to watch over people, but Hamashiach don't. Moses and Elijah came back and talked with him. They wasn't watching over nobody. They didn't interfere in the affairs of us mortals who are still tasting life. So Hamashiach in us, with us, helping us to be guidance every day. What do you, I mean, Hamashiach is in you. Is that relationship growing and nourishing? Yahweh is in you. Is that relationship growing? You see? All right, keep reading. So we looking for the Messiah. We read about, giving things to Yahweh, paying tithes from your animals and your crops. All right. If you start feeling sleepy, stand up. All right. Let's read the last verse in 40s again. 48 in the KJV.
Who is the person?
Who is the individual? And notice it now in the Hebrew, it may say nefesh or ish, soul or man. All right. But who is the person? Who is the individual? Go ahead.
Who will live and not see death.
Live and not see death. So how can you live and then not see death? So that's talking about one, the people that Hamashiach was talking to that says that, remember he said that this generation, there are those in this generation shall never see death before the Messiah comes. Which doesn't mean they're going to be living forever. That means they're going to die. Then they're going to be regenerated to the earth again as a human being. And they're going to be alive to see. So the same people that were on the field when he was alive, that same group of people is going to be back now, or when he comes, and be serious about him. That same fervor, that same zeal, that same dedication, zealous for the law. The Maccabees, right, were so zealous for the law. They were ready to kill for the law. They killed for the law. Josephus and them killed for the law. Remember, Josephus, a lot of you forget that Josephus was a military commander that was killing Roman soldiers. Do you forget that when you read the book of the history of Josephus? King David was on the battlefield killing people. That's how he got his most famous story, David and Goliath. He was a killer. The Maccabees were killers. Josephus was a killer. These men were killers. These men weren't no punks. Something happened to Kyrie Irving's, then some brothers want to get together. We're going to march. March what? As they say, real bad boys move in silence. You don't know what I'm doing. To who, when, or why, because I'm not doing it for media publicity. But we made the news. We're on the news. So what? You got a new moon, you got a white moon, full moon, calling it the new moon. You got women coming around you when you want when they're on their cycle, and you having ceremonies during all of this too. See, we that have a deeper understanding, we know that the things that those brothers are doing, that's a form of what they call white witchcraft. They're witches. This ain't no opinion. You can look it up yourself. Under the white moon, do women get together and have ceremonies that involve menstrual blood. You can look it up for yourself. Don't believe me about it. And that's exactly what a lot of Israelite organizations are doing. I'm not in the mood to call their name right now, but you'll catch me next week. I might be in the mood. So they are working against the Davidic covenant. Would King David allow that? Oh, my grandson, my great-great-great-great-grandson died for your sins. So now you can do something that is still written as a sin. No, it doesn't make, that's wickedness. That's a lie. I'm not even going to use the phrase, it doesn't make sense. You know why? Because a lot of stuff that don't make sense, but it's correct. Right? It don't make sense, but it's correct. Does it make sense you can't eat a rabbit? Nice, cute little animal. Rabbits wanting to clean it. A rabbit poop don't even stink. You can't eat it though. Does that make sense to you? People been eating rabbits for years. They don't stink. They clean animals. They got a bunch of babies. But you know what you raise rabbits for? To feed to the reptile vendors. To feed to people that want that manure, because they make a lot of manure and sell that manure. To feed the people that got, pet lizards. All right. To put up there to attract the coyotes, or kill the coyotes. But you can't eat the rabbit. But it's a cute little furry, nice animal. Okay. So we can't say don't make sense is the how that's the standard. It don't gotta make sense. But again, and we get back to what you're about to read. We are living in the time of the Davidic covenant. Now, within the covenant, I don't want to go here, y'all, but I feel compelled in my spirit. And then you could blame Masha for it, because we were talking about these things. So it's Masha's fault. If you want to blame anybody, Masha in Houston, Texas, in Rosenberg, it's his fault, because we had this conversation. He was calling me, asking me these questions. And you got the wheels turning. You want to ask somebody else, blame somebody else. You can blame Daniela Perez in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. He was asking me a question about, we were talking about Revelation also a couple of weeks ago. But we are in the time of the fourth seal. See, this is what y'all really want to hear. But when you hear it, it's going to make you keep the law better. You don't understand how close we are. There's 4 things supposed to happen in the fourth seal. History have seen 3 of them. The 4th thing hasn't happened. We've seen a quarter of the earth affected by famine, by sword, and by famine, by sword, and by death and warfare. We haven't seen a wild beast get released from Revelation chapter 6, verse 7 through 8. That's the time that we're in now. We're in a time of the 4th seal of Revelation chapter 6. It's been opened already. The 1st, 2nd, and 3rd seal were all open. The 1st seal is when Rome came into power and other little kingdoms started to kind of pop up and challenge them. They smashed them. Then we have 200 years of peace. Revelation chapter 6, verse 1 and 2. And then in verse 3 and 4, what happened? The angel came, on the red horse, and what did he do? He took away peace from the earth. And if you went to a halfway decent European ran high school, you ain't gonna learn this in Mexico, not Belize, but in America or England, you will learn about the Pax Romana. You learn about the Pax Romana in school, right? The Pax Romana, which is 200 years from approximately 27 BC to like 186 AD. When everybody was there, nobody was able to, when Rome said they wanted to come and get you, when they came and get Israel in 70 AD, that was it, right? That was it. When they came and get us in 135 AD. That was it. We couldn't stand against them. For 200 years, nobody could oppose the Roman Empire. Nobody could oppose them. They had peace. They were enforcing peace on earth. And that's the same that America did. They went to, for real, shut up, smacking up the whole room. Could nobody fight against them? But then the Most High took that spirit away when? In 1969, when they started to lose in Vietnam. Their leaders started to get assassinated. And then we were getting assassinated, King and Malcolm X. But what's my point? My point is that was the second seal being opened when peace was taken on the earth. And that's why, that's why we got peace nowhere to be found on the earth. My bad, sorry about that. So they took the peace from the earth. And I'm sharing this with you because this is really like a recent revelation that the spirit of wisdom showed me of exactly where we are. First, it started with revelation. Then Khadijah and I, you could blame her too, because Khadijah and I and Masha were talking about the condition of our people and what's going on. And we looked at the different ages. And we said, well, everything got to be divided into 7. It's got to be 7. So then we looked at the 7 ages that we're in now. The age of the patriarchs, the age of the Torah, and then the kingdom getting set up, and then losing the kingdom, the apostolic age, right? And what came after Hamashiach? And then what did Hamashiach say was coming next? What did he say? Huh? What did he didn't say that. What did he say? What time? What age did he call it? So we're in the age of the Gentiles now. He already told us where we at. We're not in the time of Israel's rulership, Israel's power, Israel's glory. We are in the time of the Gentiles. All right. Luke chapter 21, verse 24. And he shall fall by the sword and be led captive into all nations, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. So what time are we in? Time of the Gentiles. So that means there had to be a great leap of power from the Gentiles after his death. Why after his death? Because he had to go back to the heavens. He had to go back to Hashemayim to open up that seal. So when he opened up the seal, that's when Rome really got their power. Yahweh ordained Rome to have that power. Because of the wickedness of the children of Israel. Esau had to get into power. Did not Ezra tell us even before Christ came, Jacob is the beginning of the new world, the new age, and Esau is the end of the old world? Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of the world that follows, right? He already told us. So Rome is the one that started, but Hamashiach told us the same prophecy in different words. So now we're in a time, it wasn't Hamashiach in the time of King, isn't he part of the Davidic covenant? Huh? When David talks about his son in Psalms chapter 72, isn't he talking about Hamashiach? All right, so this ain't it. This ain't it. But maybe it is. Let me check and see. Yeah, when he talks about when he talks about his son and the Davidic covenant, the one that tells the one with about oh yeah, this is it. All right, so the one about all the prophecies about the Messiah. You read Chronicles and you read the Psalms. You read these Psalms in your King James Bible, 16, 22, I believe 32. right? Psalm 72, Psalm 110, all about the Messiah. Okay? So we're in the covenant of David right now. We're living in the time of the covenant of David. And just like Absalom came against David, thought he was entitled to rule over his father, you have Hebrew Israelites thinking that they're the ones supposed to rule, sitting on thrones, but they not upholding the Torah. That is our law. That's how we set up our government. The government of Israel was built on the law. And now, since Hamashiach came, it's got to be built on the law and on Hamashiach, right? But Hebrew Israelites ain't doing that. They're building the kingdom. They're trying to build organization groups around simply being Israel, but they have no anchor. The cornerstone is Hamashiach. Paul told us that you can't build on no other foundation except for Hamashiach. Okay? So he's the foundation. He is what everybody has been expecting even before Moses. Okay? So we're in a time of King David's covenant right now. What's the covenant that comes after King David? First of all, David's going to be with us in the wilderness. You can look at Ezekiel chapter 37 tells you that David's going to be with us in the wilderness. So after Hamashiach came, now King David is going to come back in the physical appearance before Christ comes. You see? Because Christ said, when I come, you're going to be able to look in the sky and know I'm coming for war. Okay? He says, I'm coming to make war. He says, when I come back to the earth, I'm going to bring judgment. I'm going to bring war. Okay? I'm gonna bring all eyes to me. Everybody's gonna know he's back now. And that's when we go into Revelation. All you can do is read Revelation chapter 20. How are we gonna reign with 1,000 years with Hamashiach if he comes back with us before we go into the wilderness and King David is gonna be in the wilderness? And Christ specifically said, if anybody say that I'm in the wilderness, I'm in the desert, what'd he say? Don't believe them. They lying. So how is Christ gonna be in the wilderness with us if he said, I'm not gonna be in the wilderness or the desert with you? You can read Hosea, you can read Isaiah, I think 19 or 21, when it talks about the wilderness and the desert is what it calls the place where we're gonna be. Primarily called the wilderness, but we're gonna be walking through desert areas also. And Hosea says that the desert is going to start to spring forth life. It's going to start to grow stuff. So ain't nobody going to be complaining, well, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, I want something to eat, I want some water. Can I have this? Can I have that? Nobody going to be complaining no more because the desert is going to start to blossom. It says the desert. So how was Christ going to be in it with us in the desert when he said, I'm not going to be in the desert? But it tells us in Ezekiel, chapter 37, that David is going to be with us in the wilderness. Hamashiach is coming back. We better be right. That's when we hear them trumpets sounding. That's called the great and dreadful day of Yahweh. In Revelation chapter 21, it talks about it. Revelation chapter 20, excuse me. When you go into Ezekiel chapter 37 and 38 and 39, right? It talks about that's the warfare that's going to happen between Hamashiach and the nations because they're going to surround us and we ain't going to be able to beat them. And then that's when he's going to come and make war. America is going to already be destroyed. Christ is not coming to deliver you from America. He's going to deliver us when the Gentiles surround us in Jerusalem. He ain't going to deliver us from America. America is going to be destroyed, right, by the 10 horns. when you read in Revelation chapter 17. It's all there. So most Israelites got their whole timeline off. Christianity got the whole timeline off. Lutheran Church, Presbyterian Church, Anglican Church, Catholic Church, Orthodox Church. They got the whole timeline off. Armenian Church. They got the whole timeline off. Israelites thinking that Christ's gonna come to America to deliver them. And the Bible say that America's gonna be destroyed by the 10 horns. Hamashiach comes to the picture when you read Ezekiel chapter 38. Because going to Revelation chapter 18, it says that the nations are going to look that they've been getting beat up on and been getting scorned and stuff. All right, getting beat up on. Revelations 18 talk about the nations going to be sad that America's destroyed. So if America's destroyed and Christ is coming to make war with the whole earth, don't you think they would have more problems to worry about than just their economy changing? Huh? You got bigger problems. Sky cracking. Oh man, it's the Messiah. He coming to the earth to deliver Israel and to make war with everybody. Man, let me see what the dollar to peso exchange is. Nobody gonna be doing that out there. All right, so we're in a Davidic age. Now, if you want to look at Revelation and you want another like numbered sequence, we're in the time of the fourth seal. All right, we're in the time of the fourth seal. All right. Now, the third seal was when the food basics was being sold for a day's wages. Had an economic collapse, what they call hyperinflation. And that happened when Rome was the breadbasket. Rome's breadbasket in North Africa was destroyed by a plague. And that's when Rome started to fall, when they lost their ability to get grain from Africa. Just ship it up. What? Remember, Africa, you just go to the Red Sea, go to Egypt, and then bam, Mediterranean, Rome. That's a lot easier than getting it all the way over from Russia, which grows a lot, or Ukraine that grows a lot of bread. So that's talking about hyperinflation, the black horse that had the scales, right? So that seal's been opened also, hyperinflation. That's why sometimes you'll see that, and it's going beyond that. When it's going beyond that. It's going beyond that now, because you got countries where a day's wages is not even enough to get bread now. And in that fourth seal, Revelation 6, verse 7 and 8, you had like I said, you had the plagues, you had the famine, and then you had the sword. And then you had 25% of the earth was being consumed by the sword. That's getting into the 100-year war between Britain and France and all the other wars. You had the Great Famine starting in 1315, and then you had the Great War, the 100-year war that started in 1337. And then you had the Black Death that started in the 1340s, right? So we've been through all of this already. We've been through them first three parts of the pale horse, opening up that fourth seal. That's where we are now. That's where we are now. And then what happened after it was open, verses 9 and 10, what happened? There was silence on the whole planet. The whole planet was quiet. Okay? So that's where we are now, in the fourth seal, in the fourth part of the fourth seal, which is happening within the time of the Davidic covenant. And after King David's covenant, all these things happening in that covenant, when those things, the resetting of those things, what's the resetting of those things? Is going to be the sixth covenant, which is the new covenant or the renewed covenant. And that's what we're waiting on now. We're not in it yet. When the law is going to be written in your heart and in your mind, and Hebrew Israelites ain't going to have, Ain't gonna have to ask anybody about the law, and then we're gonna teach the law to everybody. Is that vibrating? Y'all hear or feel that? All right, so that's kind of what's right here. Huh? Oh, it's my bad. Yeah, here, take your joint right here. I don't know if that's what it was though. It could have been. It probably was if somebody came back on, but it looked like it was a missed call too. All right, so that's where we are. Y'all bored yet? If you're bored yet, raise your hand. If it's a great time to be alive for you, raise your hand. Raise your hand. If you're excited about this information, raise your hand. Doesn't excite you? If you're excited about it, raise your hand. So that new covenant is what we striving toward. Okay, the water sisters. That new covenant is what we striving toward now. But we got to walk out this covenant in David. See, David's covenant. You know, what is one of the main characteristics that we see throughout David's life? What is the main attribute that we see throughout David's life? Somebody give it to me. Somebody please hit this on the head. Think deep. What is one of the main attributes that we see in David's life and in the Davidic covenant? One of two words. Think deep. Think about the elements. What happened in David's life? What happened with the Messiah? What David himself did. And what is the positive? What is the positive attribute we see from David's life in the Davidic covenant? Anybody want to mouth it? You can mouth it if you don't want to say it out loud. You want to tell me in my ear? Or you want to say it out loud? Anybody you want to guess? I say it. Compassion, mercy. David had mercy on Saul, right? He didn't kill Saul. Yahweh had mercy on David. He didn't kill David. Yahweh had mercy on us through his son operating within the Davidic covenant. And he had mercy on us. Didn't punish us and destroy us. He sent his son. So David is the example of mercy and grace and compassion from Yahweh. And that's what we got going on right now. Even in our captivity. Let me ask all of you black people something. I don't got to ask you Latinos and indigenous peoples, because y'all would have been straight if the Spanish, Portuguese hadn't come. Y'all was living in paradise, drinking coconut water and fishing and getting star fruit grown by the river. All right. Well, everybody outside of the Incan and Inca was cool. Probably one of the most chill places was in the Caribbean with the Cuba, Puerto Rico, and Dominican Republic. All right. The Mayans and the Aztecs, y'all kind of had some issues, internal issues. Okay. Y'all was cutting out people's hearts. Like cutting out people's hearts and sacrificing to all types of stuff. They found in the Caribbean and Puerto Rico? They found a cave where they used to worship. And they had the cave where they used to worship at had 12 rocks. And with these 12 rocks, there was another big rock, which is the 13th rock, and they used to worship there. They didn't paint pictures of their gods. They had a forest that they called a sacred forest called El Yunque in Puerto Rico. And they say that the creator sat on a big golden throne in a rainbow, just like you see Ezekiel and John talking about. All right. And when he was mad, he punished his people. And then when he was pleased with them, he would protect them and provide for them. And help them out. You know what his name was? Anybody, any Puerto Ricans out there? Y'all know what his name was? The creator's name of the ancient Puerto Ricans? Okay, somebody with Ephraimite blood said Yahya. Right. His name was Yahya. Yah. Like hallelujah or Yahweh. Jeremiah Yah. Isaiah Yah. What was his son's name? Yahya El. That's just real Puerto Rican history now. You don't believe me? Type it in your phone right now. Type Puerto Rico and Yahya on your phone and see what comes up. And I'll read it. Because I think that people be thinking I be lying sometimes. I be making stuff up. We need a whole Revelation debunk so we can understand the way. I didn't read the rest of it. We'll get into that. That's what the side session gonna be for. We're gonna get into the details where we can say these things out loud, Khadijah, once we finish with the Holy Convocation. You got Yahya El Puerto Rico yet? Okay. So this is just a small pause, but hey, you know, we had 3-4 weeks of not really going into too much stuff. So now we got, you know, a week of going into some stuff. I'll type, matter of fact, I'll say it. Puerto Rico, YAYA. Let's see. Or maybe you should put it in Boricua, really. Yeah. It's not coming up. Anyway, all right, so we're in the time of King David's covenant. That's the time we living in. Within that time span, everything is happening. All of this friction and balance back and forth and fighting and famine and swords. Because remember, just like when King Arthur fell, what happened? What happened when King Arthur fell? Kingdom was divided, conflict, war, death, darkness. Same thing with King David. When King David fell, conflict, death, violence, bloodshed. And the whole earth is off balance now because of what happened with King David. That one mistake that he made. But then King David's descendant, the promised Messiah, came to give us grace until what? Until David comes back. And this is the part that Christianity and a lot of Hebrew Israelites don't talk about, the fact that King David is going to come back. They go from Christ to thermonuclear war. They go from 0 to 60 in like 0.25 seconds. 0 to 60. Christ, and then nuclear war. Nothing's in between. King David got to come back. Israel has to go into the wilderness. We got to bring them to the bond of the covenant. He's going to bring us into the bond of the covenant. And this is all, I'm only in Ezekiel chapter 20. It tells us these things plainly. We're going to go under the rod. We'll have a class of lesson information about this too. So now, once that happens, what else happens? The Messiah came. He was in charge, right? Who was in charge after the Messiah? His brother, James. Also of the royal family of David. See, do people realize that people don't realize that Hamashiach inherited the throne of his father, David. He inherited the throne as the one that was supposed to inherit the throne. He inherited the throne. On the spiritual side, on the wisdom side, not on the physical side. But then when he died and he resurrected, went to the Father, when he left the third dimension, his brother James was in charge. And after his brother James was in charge, his cousin Simon was in charge. And you had 15, what they call mevaker. Or you can look that word up too. Everybody write that word down. All right. Because they didn't call themselves by Greek names. Okay. They call themselves by Hebrew names. And mevaker is what Paul came and said was a bishop. I said bishop. As soon as I start seeing it in Spanish, I'm bishop. It says mecaver, el hebreo examinador u overseer. Era un líder religioso, administrativo y espiritual clave en la antigua comunidad sectaria de Qumran. And so that's true. They were in Qumran, but they didn't just make that word up themselves. This was a community title that we don't really see in the Bible, because Paul is writing to people in Greece or in Rome that speak Greece, the Ephesians and all of that. So he's using the Greek term, but the bishop is what we would call it now. So James became a bishop. Then Hamashiach's brother Simeon became a bishop after him. And then before the Israelites got destroyed and kicked out of Jerusalem under Hadrian in 135 AD, you had the last ruler, which was Jude or Yehuda, the son, the great grand nephew of Hamashiach. Hamashiach was his great granduncle. This is his great granduncle. Hamashiach didn't have children, but he had brothers. He had cousins. Joseph had a family, siblings, and Mary had family, cousins. Elizabeth was her cousin. So his family was left in charge of Jerusalem. And his family was the last bishops in 135. In 135 AD marks the exile of Israelites from Jerusalem. So they had to continue in Syria and in Jordan after 135 AD. So, and the so-called white man hides this information. They don't want you to see that the early Israelite church was a continuation of the royal family of King David when it began and when they got kicked out of Jerusalem. It was the royal family of David, people that were under the leadership of the Davidic system that was set up by Hamashiach, continued by his brothers, and then ended in the time of his great grandnephew, whose name was Jude or Yehuda. So he got kicked out, and the Gentiles that was in Jerusalem, they voted to put a non-Hebrew in charge, because Rome said, if y'all keep the law, or if you are a blood Israelite, you got to leave. So the Gentiles put more emphasis on the church, the system, the community over obedience to Yahweh. So they said, okay, we'll give up the law. We'll give up all of the practices of the Israelites. So the Israelite church got hijacked by Gentiles that voted out Jude. I mean, Jude could have still stayed in power, but just ruling from a distance. But Rome said, if you want to keep the law, you got to leave Jerusalem under Hadrian. Look it up. Look up, did Rome ever make it illegal for Israelites to keep the law in Jerusalem? And they say yes, under Hadrian. Approximately 135 AD. That's when it happened. All right. So this is all the stuff that's in the scriptures. The scripture tells you these things are going to happen, but it don't say X, Y, Z, 1, 2, 3. It gives you the container, but it doesn't give you what's inside the container. It says, and it tells you that go into the mountains. Right? So now you got to see, okay, when did this happen? And for all of you, I'm sure that this is kind of like a tremendous gap filler. It fills in the gaps because most of us just know about 70 AD, and then we put focus on what? What do we put the focus on? After 70 AD, what do we do? What do we put the focus on? What did Hebrews just put the focus on? 70 AD, we did what? We fled into Africa. But everybody didn't flee into Africa. The hardcore members of the community that was established by Hamashiach, they stayed in Jerusalem. 70 AD, they left with Hamashiach's brother. His brother Simon. His cousin Simon. All right, Simon of Jerusalem. Simon, his father was Clopas, and Clopas was Joseph's brother. So yeah, Simon was his cousin. So they left with Simon, and they went to Jordan. But Hebrew Israelites have never been taught that missing gap. They taught, West Africa, boom, everything was lost. We know nothing. But there was still communication. Rome didn't really come down hard on us at that point. So that's how we know we're still in the time of the Davidic covenant. Is that a salad? What shall I put there? A salad? Does that mean we're eating good food? I guess that's what that means. We're eating now. You see. So now everything is focused on King David. And it's because of the mercy that Yahweh promised to King David that he's having mercy on us. How David gonna rule if he ain't got subjects? All right. All right, now let's read that again. Psalms 89:48. You know where you are though. Go ahead.
Who is the person who will live and not see death?
The Messiah.
Who will rescue his soul from the hand of Hades?
Yahweh, rescuing the Messiah from death. Read.
Verse 15. Where are your ancient mercies, O Yahweh?
Go ahead.
Which you swore to David.
You see that now David is being brought back into this equation about somebody being resurrected from the dead and an anointed one, which applies to us and the Messiah. Read.
Which you swore to David in your truth.
He swore to David that he would have mercy on him, that his seed would rule, that David would also, play a significant role. Read.
Remember, O Yahweh, the reproach of your servants.
We are his slaves to Yahweh. Read. We are Yahweh's slaves. Go ahead.
Which I bore in my bosom.
Go ahead.
From many nations.
Go ahead.
From which your enemies reproached, O Yahweh, from which they reproached the ransom of your anointed one. Blessed is Yahweh for eternity. For eternity, may it be, may it be.
Okay. I'm on. The ransom. Read that part again.
from which your enemies reproached, O Yahweh, from which they reproached the ransom of your anointed one.
What is the ransom of the anointed one? What is the ransom? What is the ransom? The death of Hamashiach. People reproach, they disrespect the death of Hamashiach and his life. They reproach his death. They don't respect and recognize the significance of his death. They say his death is so that they could continue in sin. But no, his death was that we wouldn't get destroyed as a nation for continuing in sin, so that we could be forgiven of our sin. We could repent of our sin. All right, shop the water. All right, next reader. We're going to go into the book of Judges. You know, which book is for Judges, man? That one? I think it's one of the, no, it's, yeah, you're right. All right, Judges, chapter 11, verses 10 through 40. All right, let's go to Judges, chapter 11, verses, I said 10 through 40? My bad, Judges 11, verses 30 through 40. Don't ask me, Amaria. I guess go ahead and do A. Because that was your next question, Amaria. And this deals with, of course, the vow. Vowing something to Yahweh. Judges 11, verses 30 through 40. Let's read that from column A. Go ahead.
And Jephthah vowed a vow to Yahweh and said, if with the giving over you will give to me the sons of Ammon in my hand.
This is an example of a vow that we read earlier in Leviticus 27. Read.
It shall also be that whoever comes out of the doors of my house to meet me, when I return in peace from the sons of Ammon, shall also be Yahweh's, and I will offer him up as a whole burnt offering.
All right, stop right there. He could have said, offer them to Yahweh, and he would have been able to give a ransom for the value of that thing that came out of his house first, right? But he didn't say that. He said, I will offer it up as a whole burnt offering. Read.
And Jephthah crossed over to the sons of Ammon to fight against them, and Yahweh gave them up in his hand.
Now you in column A, right? Go ahead.
Verse 33. And he struck them down from the Aroer, and until one comes to Semoith, 20 cities, as far as Abel of the vineyards, a very great blow. And the sons of Ammon were humbled from before the sons of Israel. And Jephthah came to Massapha, to his home, and see his daughter was coming out to meet him with timbrels and with dancing. And she was his beloved only child. And he had no son or daughter except her. And it came about when he saw that, he tore his clothes and said, Alas, my daughter, you have got in my way. You have become a thorn in my eyes. But I open my mouth about you to your home, and I cannot turn away. And she said to him, My father, if against me you have opened your mouth to Yahweh, do to me as it came to your mouth. Now that Yahweh has exacted vengeance from you, from your enemies, from the sons of Ammon. And she said to her father, Also do this word for me. Grant me 2 months, and I will go and descend on the mountains, and bewail my virginity, both I and my companions. And he said, Go.
Bewail her virginity mean that she had never been with a man, never had children, never gotten married. All right, go ahead.
And he said, Go, and sent her away for 2 months. And she went, she and her companions, and bewailed her virginity on the mountains. And it came about after the end of 2 months that she returned to her father. And Jephthah fulfilled his vow that he had vowed, and she had never known a man, and it became an ordinance in Israel. From days to days, the daughters of Israel would go together to lament the daughter of Jephthah, the Gileadite, 4 days of the year.
Okay. And Gilead is on the east of Jordan, I believe in like the Gadite territory. All right. So we see what happened. He made a vow. He had to keep that vow. All right, that his daughter would be sacrificed. So be careful what you say coming out of your mouth. That's the moral of that story. Okay. If there's no more moral to that story, know what you say and mean what you say, whether you swear or not. But be careful when you bring Yahweh into the picture. Careful when you bring Yahweh into the picture. All right. Let's read Matthew 14, verse 22 to 36. Next reader. So we're going into the book of Matthew. Where's the I guess the red, the NASB is upstairs. So you read Matthew 14, verse 22 to 36. And I remember we read the other day that Hamashiach and them they fed the people with the 5 loaves of bread and with the 2 fish, and it multiplied. All right, it multiplied, and it showed you the kind of like true leadership. I mean, you can ask people for, in other words, let me say it like this. When Hamashiach was born, you know, I wonder how I can use it. When Hamashiach was born, his mothers had to, feed him. His father had to put clothes on him. They taught him how to use the potty. His mother was breastfeeding him. They had to burp him, right? They had to wash him up. See, he wasn't, we talk about Hamashiach, like he was born, a full-grown man. Like Mork and Mindy. You can look that up. Like Mork and Mindy. He wasn't born a full-grown man. He wasn't like Benjamin Buttons and started to get old, he was born a baby. So somebody to take care of him. But then when he got to the point where he could help other people, right? He started to do these miracles and provide for things for the people. But that's the same thing that Hebrew Israelites need to be doing. Your people help you get to where you need to get to. You get resources from the people, but the people are supposed to get something back from the resources that they give you. It just amazes me. It just amazes me how, and I'm going to talk about our people specifically of our community organizational persuasions, because they're close to being where they need to be at. Right? Non-denominational Protestants, Catholics, they're not close. People that call themselves Hebrew Israelites are the closest to being where they need to be at spiritually, but they make a lot of juvenile mistakes. So why do you have people paying for 20 years? Why are they paying you for 20 years to come to a Passover? What is happening to the money that you're giving them? And if you're only using that money to pay rent at the different Israelite schools you got, you're not being a responsible steward. The scripture says, Hamashiach said, don't take what I give you and bury it, take it and what? Multiply it, right? That's what, Carmelech always talks about that. Taking it and multiplying it. And then Paul said, you all are giving me things, but I should be, it's the father that should be giving bread to the children, right? So our Hebrew Israelite leadership that are getting all the money coming in, at some point, that money is supposed to be taken and get multiplied for the people to use. Not just, well, I'm gonna just spend this money to pay this bill. We'll take a trip over here. We're gonna go over here and talk to these people and blah, blah, blah. They the ones that I guarantee they got money going into their pockets. They got money to pay for their bills. And, if that's what it is, hey, let it be that. But where can the people go to for free during the holy days, for the Sabbath, and eat and feast? I sat down one time and I calculated that we had, at that point, we had like maybe 4 or 5 summits, right? I think maybe 4 or 5 summits. And I calculated average plane, bus, rental car, hotel, food, new outfits. Anytime there's an event, Israelites got to go buy new clothes or put on a new garment, get a new garment made or whatever. People going to be there from around the world. And that's how people are. You want to look nice. But I did all the math, and my math led me to $1.4 million that Hebrew Israelites had invested in going to a summit that produced no tangible outcome for the nation. You know what you could buy for 1.4 million? Do you know how many buses you could buy? You could buy a boat. You could buy a nice little boat for 1.4 million. Right? You buy a boat for 1.4 million. You know what, y'all? We're going down to Florida this year, but everybody meet in New York. And we're gonna, meet in Manhattan. And we're gonna meet in Manhattan, board the boat there, and then we're gonna take the boat down to Florida, cruise. But see, Israelites are like you. They're like you on social media. You want to shoot and have an immediate response. You want to scroll and look at a 10, 15-second video. Don't let it be 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I ain't got time to be watching a movie. You want to keep on scrolling. They want to go someplace, hear something, spend money, and get immediate satisfaction. They don't want to say, okay, let me get this money for the course of 3 years so that we can have something as a nation. I've seen whole apartment complexes for like $200-something thousand in the suburbs. All right. So the point is that Hamashiach, he multiplied this food. He gave the people food. He did the miracle. He stored up his virtue. He didn't waste it. And that's why we're in, and they had leftovers. And that's where we start off at in verse 22 to the end of the chapter, verse 36. Go ahead.
Immediately, he made the disciples get into a boat and go ahead on to the other side, where he dismissed the crowds.
Okay.
And after he had dismissed the crowds,
Go ahead.
He went up the mountain by himself to pray.
He went into the mountain to pray. He had to be alone. You see, you can't be up under your mother, your father, your son, your daughter, your siblings all the time. You got to go someplace by yourself and pray. See, but people nowadays don't think about that. You got to go by yourself and pray. You want to be like the Messiah, that's what he did. Read.
When evening came, he was there alone. But by this time, the boat, battered by the waves, was far from the land.
Mm-hmm.
The wind was against them.
So they couldn't get to the other side. Go ahead.
And early in the morning, he came walking towards them on the sea.
So he's walking on the water. Miraculous. All right, go ahead.
But when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified, saying, "It is a ghost." And they cried out in fear. But immediately Yahushua spoke to them and said, "Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid." Peter answered him, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water."
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Come." So Peter got out of the boat and started walking on the water
Mm.
and came toward Yahushua. But when he noticed the strong wind, he became frightened, and beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me!" Yahushua immediately reached out his hand and caught him, saying, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?"
So he was in the process of doing it. So he knew he could do it. But in the process, yeah, a little bit of wind came, and then he started to, he got scared. Oh, I'm gonna fall, but you're already doing it, and the master is with you. If you are engaging in righteous endeavors and you know that the Most High is on your side, press forward. Don't be scared. Don't be weary, because we got things that are much smaller that we're trying to do besides walking on water, right? I ain't trying to walk on the water. You trying to walk on water? You trying to walk on water? I'm not trying to walk on the water. Maybe swim. Maybe put your feet in the water. I'm trying to walk on the water. We trying to deal with things we know and can feel and touch and see and hear. But if you're doing something that you know the Most High is in favor of, you know, if you know you're doing something that is His will, then He'll be with you and you doing it. But you got to have faith, and you got to be living righteously. All right, go ahead.
When they got into the boat, the wind ceased, and those in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of Yahweh."
Why he could have just told the wind to stop, but Peter had to go through that test. Now, ask yourself, how did Peter get back onto the boat? When Hamashiach, they said Hamashiach took him by the hand, right? Read that verse again.
Yahushua immediately reached out his hand and caught him, saying to him, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?"
So how did he caught him with his hand? So did he pick Peter up, or did his faith transfer to Peter, and him holding Hamashiach's hand is the only way that Peter was able to walk on the water? Probably the latter, holding his hand. But Hamashiach was frustrated, like, yo, I shouldn't have to hold your hand, man. Kind of what we started out this whole conversation with at the beginning, right? Read your lesson throughout the week. All right? Know it and research it. So Peter's like, okay, I'm gonna hold your hand. But if you gotta hold on to his hand, Peter had to do what he had to do, right? It was either hold on to his hand or sink. But when he was touching Hamashiach, he was like, oh man, I feel, rejuvenated now. I read.
Verse 34, when they had crossed over, they came to the land of Gennesaret.
Mm-hmm.
After the people of that place recognized him, they sent word to that whole surrounding region. And people brought all who were sick to him and begged him that they might touch even the fringe of his cloak.
The fringe, see, they got to translate it good in here. Touch the fringe of his cloak. Go ahead.
And all who touched it were healed.
All right. People that touched his garment became healed. And you got a lot of songs about this too, touching him and his garment. All right, next reader, Luke 16, 1 through 8. Again, right on time with the theme that we're talking about. And then we talked about the steward and stuff. Okay, now let me tell you something. Let me tell you a secret. Sometimes, like this week, I won't read the Torah portion. And it's been happening for years now. For years. Like, I won't read the Torah portion, or I won't read the whole thing. Like, I read the first 7 verses, that was it. Because I've read these things, like, I've been reading this for since he was a baby. So when I started to read, I said, okay, yeah, it's an instant refresher. All right. But I didn't read these verses. And I only read the first 7 verses of the Torah reading. But then when we started to conversate, spiritually, my conversation starts to align with the things that we're reading. Earlier, we talked about how, just a few minutes ago, we talked about how taking the money and multiplying it to help the people, right? And before that, we talked about how you should be able to do some of these things and be reading on your own without somebody holding your hand, that you can get as much information as I can if you apply yourself spiritually. So now he's about to read about the money, a part of it, the stewardship. I said a bad steward, which I hadn't read this week or last week about stewardship, but that's exactly what we're talking about. And focusing on the Israelite leadership and them being good stewards, as opposed to just sitting up there talking. Once you start taking people's money, you change the whole dynamic of the relationship, and you owe them something now, bigger than just words. All right, go ahead.
Luke chapter 16, verse 1. Then Yahushua said to the disciples,
Something in my eye, I don't know what it is.
there was a rich man who had a manager, and charges were brought to him that this man was squandering his property.
So the managers are stewards. Squandering his property, meaning that the manager is not managing the assets, the resources, the money, the land of the man properly. Read.
So he summoned him and said to him, what is this that I hear about you? Give me an accounting of your management, because you cannot be my manager any longer.
Yeah, Hebrew Israelites, what's happened to all of this money that people have been giving you for the past 10 years, 15 years? Where's the institutions? Where's even the church, man? They give you a bus to come pick you up on a Sabbath. On Sunday. But you're paying for that bus with that pastor and the deacons and the ushers appreciation dinners, right? And the food that's being sold in the basement every Sunday evening, right? And the food's been sold. You can't front. When you get that church fried chicken and that church collard greens and the church cornbread and that church pound cake by them women that's been cooking for 60 years, it hit different. I ain't gonna front, it hit different. It was worth your little $3 to $5. It's gonna be better than a better meal you gotta be paying anywhere else. So you can't front on it. They can't do everything for free per se, but take that money and build the resources for the spiritual community. Right? So he's like, yo, give an account. Who's making the Hebrew Israelite leadership give account for the money that the people are giving them? Nobody. Read.
Then the manager said to
Stop.
himself,
When you look at King David, and you look at King David's descendants, the kings, they sent people through the community, through the city, to take account for money, what's being taught, what the people are doing throughout the nation. Israelites now ain't doing that. Everybody's doing what they want to do, and they like it like that. Because at the end of the day, they don't want no accountability. Read.
what will I do now that my master is taking the position away from me?
He said, now I'm on my way out. What am I going to do? Like the so-called Israelite leader back in just a little while ago, when he seen that people was, saying that he was doing all sorts of things he shouldn't be doing, he went totally to the left-hand side. All right? He just went totally to the left-hand side. Bang, bang, gang, gang, right? He just went all the way out. But listen to what this man did. Read.
I'm not strong enough to dig, and I am ashamed to beg.
So he said, look, I don't want to be out there digging no ditches, and I don't want to be out there begging for money. He humbled himself to the reality, like, yo, I'm on my way out. I'm caught up in stuff, that I ain't supposed to be doing. What am I going to do? This is your spiritual lesson on what to do. Read.
I've decided what to do so that when I'm dismissed as manager, people may welcome me into their homes. So, summoning his master's debtors one by one, he asked the first, 'How much do you owe my master?' He answered, 100 jugs of olive oil."
So he said, okay, I got this merchandise I'm selling. I'm giving 50%. I'm gonna go out with a bang, showing love to the people. But these brothers come on internet cussing people, cursing people, disrespecting the word of the Most High, right? Continuing in their folly, continuing in their pride. Go ahead.
He said to him, "Take your bill, sit down quickly, and make it 50."
How much did he owe?
100.
And he said, what? 50. How many of these Hebrew Israelites, when they get caught up in some type of scandal, say, you know what? 50% off for everybody. All my gear, everything I'm selling is 50% off. My Patreon, 50% off. Membership, 50% off. Passover, 50% off. This brother said, hey, man, I'm about to go out. I need to get favor with the people. So everything is cut in half. And once he cut it in half, right, the ruler can't come back and be like, no, you owe me this, because he's the one that's in charge of it. So he said, I'm about to fire you. So that's like the Holy Spirit. This is a private conversation. That's like the Holy Spirit convicting you before you get put on Front Street. And you need to show compassion and love toward the people. What? Compassion toward the people. Go ahead.
Then he asked another, "How much do you owe?" He replied, 100 containers of wheat.
Go ahead.
He said to him, "Take your bill and make it 80." And his master commended the dishonest manager because he had acted shrewdly. For the children of this age are more shrewd in dealing with their own generation than the children of the light.
Keep reading.
And I tell you, make friends for yourselves by means of dishonest wealth, so that when it is gone, they may welcome you into the eternal homes.
Now, this is a hard lesson to swallow. It's basically meaning like you got to righteously be able to do things that's going to benefit people so that when the time, you don't got to be, so when the time comes, you can get help from them same people. Read that part again. And your Bible says, make friends of the mammon of unrighteousness, that when you fail, they may receive you into everlasting habitation. Read that again. What you got?
And I tell you, make friends for yourselves by means of dishonest wealth, so that when it is gone, they may welcome you.
So people that are dealing with things dishonestly, the scripture says don't totally just dismiss them. Imagine like, instead of you being like, you know, instead of you going out there with armed rifles and pistols, telling all the drug dealers, hey man, y'all need to get off this corner. Like when we would go teach on the streets where drug dealers was at, you know, we didn't focus on them. We focused on the same thing we focused on when we teaching downtown. When we went to the projects to teach, and we went to the downtown to teach, where the buses line up, we talk about the same thing. It's the same thing. We talked about you shouldn't be doing this, shouldn't be doing that, who you are, Hamashiach, repentance, and salvation. But we put more emphasis on the curses that came upon our people and how to get out of them curses, you know, spiritually, and move forward, you know, in a better economic sense by applying these spiritual principles. You know, we wasn't out to like, you know, you a hoe, you a trick, you a prostitute, you a witch drug dealer, and we wasn't doing all that. We just talk regular. And what you come to find out is that look at how Hebrew Israelites teach when they go to the projects, and look at how they teach when they downtown, when the police around, when the security. They talk differently. They don't talk slick and reckless. That's why a lot of these Hebrew Israelites, you don't see them going into nobody's projects. Like Hamashiach did. He went to the place where people were like, yo, why is he going there with them people? They don't teach there. They don't go there. And that's why, honestly speaking, that's why you don't really see a lot of street videos of us teaching outside, because we were in places where you couldn't record. How you gonna be recording somebody's hand-to-hand drug deals going on like 10 feet away from you? You got cars pulling up, coming up to get, weed, crack, dope, whatever. 20 feet, 30 feet away from where you standing. You got, smokers, fiends coming up, doing hand-to-hand drug exchanges. You can't record that. Brothers and sisters out there doing that type of stuff. Because when you put it online and law enforcement see it, you just got everybody sunk. And they're gonna pull up your video as evidence against your brothers that was doing something they ain't had no business doing. And your brother's gonna look at you like, man, why? It's foreseeing that. Don't even take a camera there. Just go there for the souls of the people, not for no testimony or publication for the whole world. We know what we did. And it's because of people advertising what they're doing. That's where they get their following from. They don't get their following from what they do before the Most High. They get their following behind what they do before men. Because all over social media. All right. So now them same drug dealers are the ones you trying to talk to the people and help them cancel their spiritual debt. Read that part again. Let's look at it in the spirit now. We looked at it carnally, look at it in the spirit. Go ahead.
And I tell you, make friends for yourselves.
Make friends for yourselves, meaning be respectful, engaging, interacting with who?
By means of dishonest wealth.
With the publicans, right? With the tax collectors. The people that everybody else in society is looking down on. Read.
So that when it is gone, they may welcome you into the eternal homes.
Right, so now you're looking on a spiritual level, like the Most High now. And once these people repent, they're going to be welcoming and kind and loving toward you. You're leading them to repentance. All right, go ahead.
Whoever is faithful in the very little is faithful also in much.
Go ahead.
And whoever is dishonest in very little is dishonest also in much.
Go ahead.
If then you have not been faithful with a dishonest wealth, who will entrust you to the true riches? And if you have not been faithful with what belongs to another, who will give you what is your own?
So it's telling you to be faithful and be upright and to be honest with what you got. And we're going into the spiritual zone. Are you being honest with the information, that you have now? All right. All right, next reading. John 11, verse 38 through 44. 38 through 44. We went to verse 10 in Luke. All right, John 11, 38 through 44. Go ahead.
Then Yehoshua, again greatly disturbed, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and the stone was lying against it. Yehoshua said, "Take away the stone."
Now this is Lazarus when he died. Okay, go ahead.
Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, "Lord, already there is a stench because he has been dead 4 days." Yehoshua said to her,
So that 4 days dead, 400 years, the children of Israel, right? Captivity. Isn't our community, our mindset, our actions, don't they stink? Go ahead.
how she said to her,
What'd he say?
"Did I not tell you that if you believe, you would see the glory of Allah?"
So don't worry about the stinkiness around you. Know that that stinkiness can be rejuvenated into life. Don't worry about the stench. Worry about taking that stench into life righteously with the guidance of who? Hamashiach. His life, his examples, all right, his actions are guidance for us. Go ahead.
So they took away the stone, and Yahushua looked upward and said, "Father, I thank you for having heard me. I knew that you always hear me,
Mm,
but I have said this for the sake of the crowd standing here, so that they may believe that you sent me."
right.
When he had said this, he cried out with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out."
Lazarus, come forth. Go ahead.
The dead man came out.
Now, Lazarus is a Hebrew word, Eliezer, which means Aliyah is like my God help, or help of my God. Go ahead.
The dead man came out, his hands and feet bound with strips of cloth, and his face wrapped in a cloth.
So he came out like a mummy. You see, he came out like a mummy. They wrapped his legs separately, his torso, his arms, his chest, his head, face. Go ahead.
Yahushua said to them, "Unbind him and let him go."
Unbind him and let him go. All right. So death couldn't hold him once Amashiach commanded him to come forth. All right. And tomorrow we're gonna see people gonna start, not tomorrow, but next week, we're gonna see people start believing on him. And then here come the Pharisees, and here come the haters wanting to kill somebody for doing good. All right. Let's go to 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 16 and 18. Next reading. And then after that, we're going to go to Titus 3, 1 through 15. I'm sorry, 2 Peter 1. I don't know if I said first or second, but 2 Peter 1, verse 16 and 18.
Second Peter 1, verse 16. For we did not follow cleverly devised myths, when we made known to you the power and coming of our Lord Yahushua Mashiach, but we had been eyewitnesses of his majesty. For he received honor and glory from Yahweh the Father, when that voice was conveyed to him by the majestic glory, saying, "This is my Son, my beloved, with whom I am well pleased." We ourselves heard this voice come from heaven while we were with him on the holy mountain.
All right. All right, next reader. Titus chapter 3, verse 1 through 15. So here we see that there was a lot of things that people were believing that were just fables, things that weren't true. And Peter is saying, we're not following these things. We're following Hamashiach. And that's why Israelites, a lot of time, they try to distract you with some new doctrine, some new theory that just popped up out the sky, out the ground, rather, out of hell. Some new belief that they want to let you understand and see and understand. They ain't got nothing to do with repentance and obedience. You see? So Peter is saying, we dealing with Hamashiach. We saw the glory, and we saw him get baptized, and we heard Yahweh's voice say, "This is my son. I'm well pleased with him." And we heard the voices from heaven, and we saw him with Elijah and with Moses when they were, on the Mount of Olives, which is called the Holy Mount right there. All right. So don't get caught up into looking up all these Jubilees and Enoch and this lost book. All right, but stay focused on the message of Hamashiach, the message of obedience to Yahweh. That's the main focus. The uprising of Israel, Hebrew Israelites want to rise up without coming into Hamashiach and coming into Torah. I mean, you'll hear certain Hebrew Israelites talking about Hamashiach, Hamashiach Yahushua, Hamashiach Yahushua. But then their law game is weak. And you hear brothers sometimes ain't nobody really walking in the commandments like they're supposed to, honestly. But even with Hamashiach, it's almost like they're using it as like a gimmick. Because Hamashiach, he was about obedience. You can't be balancing, you can't have Hamashiach here heavier than the law, or have the law here heavier than Hamashiach. You got to have them like this. Obey the commandments, believe in Hamashiach. The commandments talk about Hamashiach. Yahweh tells you how to worship him. And Yahweh tells you to respect and honor his son. So you got to honor the son and honor the commandments. It's not the Messiah is, what we look to now, and we throw the law away. We disregard the law. No, you got to keep the commandments. All right, last reading, Titus chapter 3, verse 1 through 15. Titus 3, verse 1 through 15. Go ahead.
Titus chapter 3, verse 1. Remind them to be subject to rulers and authorities, to be obedient, to be ready for every good work, to speak evil of no one, to avoid quarreling, to be gentle, and to show every courtesy to everyone.
Be respectful of everybody. Be respectful of everybody. What he's saying. Go ahead.
For we ourselves were once foolish, disobedient, led astray, slaves to various passions and pleasures.
When he says brawler, when you see us on the streets, man, a lot of times our people you can look at the videos. They literally are on these videos brawling with each other. Literally. And thinking they're doing something good. They provoke each other. Then when somebody responds, with an assault on somebody, now they want to act like they ain't do nothing to provoke somebody, restrain the person, and then call the police. Setting your own brother up. Brawlers. That's again, look at how people talk. How they talk to people. All types of stuff. People getting arrested, the police coming. Look, go back and look at the video of us teaching at the corner of Broad Street and High Street in Columbus, Ohio, in front of the state capitol building for the whole state of Ohio. We're teaching at the state capitol building. Okay, and we on the southeast corner, but we on the block. Is that whole block the state building, or just a section of it? Then you got stores when you go further into downtown. But you got the state building right there. State building, garage, everything, elevators, and the police literally come up to us and tell us to stop teaching. And listen close to the video. Play the video slow and listen. The dude I don't know what happened myself. He grabbed my hand, about to put some handcuffs on me. And I don't know what types of Yoda Jedi trick I did on him. You can hear the handcuff go click. It go click, but my hand twist. He let go of my hand. Then I just go, I say, I'm about to go finish teaching. And I go back teaching and he don't bother me no more. And then there's Zaquan Nathaniel and a Levite brother, lawyer, start talking to the police. And then after that, Nathaniel starts teaching and they go head on. All right, they go head on. But we wasn't out there. Everybody know how we teach. We don't teach like, we teach very, like Titus said, we talk to people very respectfully. We don't talk to you like you crazy. Unless if you say something crazy, we're gonna say something crazy back to you with, you know, with tact, with diplomacy, you know. And then we're gonna get back to our normal, just how we talk now. How I'm talking now, that's how we talk on the street. Like we're in a classroom setting, but it just may be more fast-paced, more scriptures coming out. Because you got to engage the people and put something in their spirit while they're there. So that's how we should talk. So, but a lot of Hebrew Israelites now, you listen to how they talk. They talk all, just a lot, not all of them, but a lot of them are real, you know, confrontational. Like they're ready to fight the people they're teaching. Like they're not really concerned about the repentance of their soul. They're concerned about you not saying nothing fly to them. If you say something slick, I'm going to talk slick back to you, no matter what you say, or who you are, whatever. And for the most part, we ain't have no problem with people. You know? So this shows you the spirit that Paul is telling Titus, not brawlers. You got to be gentle. So look at brothers when they talk, you know, Tahar and GMS is anything but gentle and no brawlers. They the opposite of that. A lot of the Hebrew Israelite camps out there be very, you know, just mean toward people. You know, you got LOZ in them, and they got a good approach when they talking to people, from what I've seen. And then HOI got a okay approach when they talk to people, from what I've seen, but they got bigger issues with what is betrothal and what is marriage. All right, because there's a lot of secret, wicked fornication being quietly accepted and tolerated amongst a lot of Hebrew Israelite organizations, because they don't know or respect the law. They don't know and respect the standards in the Bible. But you can't be brawlers with people. You got to be gentle in how you talk and approach people. That's what Paul is saying. All right, go ahead, keep going.
Passing our days.
What verse you in?
Titus chapter 3, verse 3.
All right, we in verse 3. All right, go ahead.
Passing our days in malice and envy, despicable, hating one another. But when the goodness and loving kindness of Allah,
He said we were sometimes these things. Hateful. Hating one another. Diverse lust and pleasure. We used to be that way. We're not supposed to be that way when we come into Hamashiach. All right, read verse 4.
but when the goodness and loving kindness of Allah,
When the love of Yahweh does what?
our Savior, appeared, he saved us, not because of any works of righteousness that we had done, but according to his mercy.
So when you understand, what did we say? David's mercy and compassion. We said that earlier, right? Mercy and compassion. Okay.
Through the water of rebirth and renewal by the Holy Spirit.
We talked about being washed by the word earlier too, right? So like I said, a lot of times when you go into the law, you see certain things get triggered in your spirit on a positive note, and it'll make you bring other things out. So we see the conversation that we were talking about. are things that we're reading about in the scriptures now. Go ahead.
This Spirit be poured out on us richly.
Washing and regeneration, and a special Spirit being poured out on you. Of what? Washing, regeneration, and renewing in the Holy Spirit. By his mercy that saved you.
This Spirit he poured out on us richly through Yahushua HaMashiach, our Savior, so that, having been justified by his grace, we might become heirs, according to the hope of eternal life. The saying is sure. I desire that you insist on those things, that those who have come to believe in Allahia may be careful to devote themselves to good works.
Devoted to good works. All right. Are you trying to figure out what to do good, or just what's going to get you seen by everybody? Go ahead.
These things are excellent and profitable to everyone, but avoid stupid controversies, genealogies, dissensions, and quarrels about the law.
Avoid stupid, all the things that we debate. He's saying avoid them. He's saying avoid them. Read that part again.
But avoid stupid controversies.
Avoid stupid controversies. He's saying avoid them. That's why a lot of times I don't really get mixed up in other people's business. It's stupid. It's stupid. So I what? Avoid it. Stupid controversy. What else?
Genealogies.
I don't get caught up in. I'll make some statements about it, but I'm not going to build a whole message around. I'm not going to build a whole movement around against, about R, E, and J genealogy. I've already said plenty of times, genealogy and DNA and what haplogroup you belong to is not a good determinant, is not a good thing to use to figure your genealogy. Because you got different primary groups, but you only got one man who we come from, which is Noah. So how can you have 13 or 14 or 3 major haplogroups of DNA if we all come from Noah? Obviously, what they call that? Some kind of what? Mutation had to happen, right? So if a mutation happened, it's a mutation. It ain't nothing solid, and you don't know who where. If mutation happens, that means 2 people from the same blood group can go 2 different areas and end up with 2 different types of mutation in their genealogy, right? That's why it's a mutation. I keep reading.
Dissensions and quarrels about the law, for they are unprofitable and worthless.
Do we got to keep the law? Who have you argued with that they got to keep commandments that has said, okay, I'm going to start keeping the commandments now? Nobody had to convince me or prove to me to keep the commandments. I respected the word of Yahweh enough to be like, as the bumper sticker used to say back in the day, God said it, I believe it, that settles it. I'm not going to argue with you about, can you be gay or not? Can you eat squirrel or not? The squirrel, even if it scampers among us, right? Can you marry your sister or not? No, we can't do that. That's it. Ain't no debate. That's it. That's what it says. That's it. All right, go ahead.
After a first and second admonition.
What he say? See that? He telling you got to have a system in place. You got to have a system in place. Go ahead.
After a first and second admonition.
That means you got a brother, you got a sister, you check them. 1 or 2, you don't sit there and argue and debate. So he's not saying avoid the topics, right? He ain't saying avoid the topics, Karashallah, Masha, Zayatan. He ain't saying avoid the topic. He's saying after the first or second admonition, go ahead.
Have nothing more to do with anyone who causes divisions.
Don't have nothing else to do with them. Once you warn them once or twice, he said you don't get a third time. Now, he's not talking about we can't get along because you owe me $5 and you say you only owe me, $3.50. He's not talking about that. He's talking about you're saying you got these foolish questions, these heretic stuff, and these things. Well, we don't got to keep that part of the law no more. He said, tell them once, tell them twice, and then avoid them. Reject them. All right, go ahead. So, but what do Hebrew Israelites do? Whenever a Hebrew Israelite develop a new doctrine, they make a new camp, Israelites want to do the opposite of what Paul is saying. They want to have a unity camp. Oh, you believe in the lunar Sabbath? Yeah. And you believe in the weekly Sabbath? Yeah. Let's go do a unity camp to show that we united. That's the exact opposite of what the scriptures say. All right, go ahead. And that's why you see, and that kind of answers the question of why a lot of people have a problem with Paul and people start to relax their standard. Because when Clement, okay, when Clement and them started to teach the law, we got to keep the law, and then Ignatius of Antioch said we don't got to keep the laws no more, all like that. What happened? They were supposed to check them hard and then stop dealing with them, but they didn't do that. You see, they did the same thing that Hebrew Israelite leaders are doing now. They let people come up with these false doctrine. They still hold their hand as brothers. And then people look like they're united, and then they slip off. And they start teaching crazy stuff, and then you don't endorse this person. So now that person is being viewed as if they really down with something that's righteous. But they teaching madness and foolishness. Right? Madness and foolishness. So you can't co-sign on what they're doing. So a lot of Hebrew Israelites, they scared to stand up when somebody start coming out with a false doctrine. They embrace the false doctrine with the brother that's teaching it. Go ahead.
Verse 11. Since you know that such a person is perverted and sinful, being self-condemned.
He said they are perverted and what?
Sinful.
Sinful. Perverted and sinful. What is sin? Transgression of the law. So that shows you that anybody that is not promoting, keeping obedience to the Father without compromise is going to be a problem. And look at what they're talking about the law. One law that every Hebrew Israelite breaks just about is they get in that car and light that fire on the Sabbath. We all did it before. We've all done it because we got to what? We got to go to camp. We got to go to camp. I remember one year, though, we was like, man, we just walked like 2 blocks to go teach. Because the school was on like a main strip. It was a main strip, always traffic, all types of activity going on. All right, all types of activity going on. Urban activities. So we went to teach. And if you know anything about it, you can probably put this on YouTube and find a video. We taught at the top of Lily and Main Street. And that's one of the hottest blocks on the east side. Lily and Main Street. All right, just north of the freeway, the highway right there. What's that? It's that 70. Taught right there. And all sorts of people came. Man, what y'all doing teaching out there? What y'all doing? Y'all need to shut that up. Between the pizza spot and the restaurant. The pizza spot, and the corner store. On Lily, you can look it up. Lily and not Lily and Livingston. But Lily and Main Street is the different. You know. And we was out there, talking and teaching, and we walked there though. We walked there. So that's what I'm saying. You don't gotta drive. So that's what all Hebrew Israelite camps are using their cars on the Sabbath. Some of them even heating up their food on the Sabbath day. All right. I went to one place, it was cooking before the Sabbath, but you still heating it up. It was in the crock pot. Remember the cheese, the meat and cheese, taco dip and stuff with the green onion. It was good too. Right? With the chips. Down in Demopolis. Huh? With vegan meat. But yeah, so they were served that, and the wise said, "Oh man, we supposed to be doing all this, though, right?" But that's what I'm saying. Like all Hebrew Israelites reject, like Paul said, they reject admonishment. They don't want that admonition. So Paul says, you know what? These people what did Paul call them?
Perverted and sinful.
Perverted and sinful. Go ahead.
Verse 12, when I send Artemis to you, or Tychicus, do your best to come to me at Nicopolis, for I have decided to spend the winter there.
Mm-hmm.
Make every effort to send Zenos,
Bring Zenos, go ahead.
the lawyer, and Apollos on their way, and see that they lack nothing.
So they had to iron some stuff out. He said, bring the lawyer dude with you. See, but you don't know what they was talking about because it ain't recorded. All right, go ahead.
Let people learn to devote themselves to good works.
Devote yourself to good works. Go ahead.
In order to meet urgent needs, so that they may not be unproductive.
Go ahead.
All who are with me send greetings to you. Greet those who love us in the faith. Grace be with you all.
All right. So that's the readings for today. Let's take a little, maybe just don't nobody go nowhere. Take a little 3-minute session. I need to go see a man about a horse real quick. Somebody take over the discussion. Nobody, huh? Anybody? Well, you're not me, bro. Just got started.
I'll just
Okay, that's maybe charged. My bad. All right, so as as Ariashah was reading, Paul is giving a lot of warnings about things that we see going on now. But the reason you can't do these things and respond this way, one thing that we see, let me finish my first statement because I know that irritates people. The reason we can't do these things now is because there's no unity amongst the people. So you saying if one Israelite camp say we ain't dealing with this camp, they're like, so what? I don't care. I don't rock with y'all anyway. But back here, everybody was still together. So when you said, hey, we're going to kick this brother out, he couldn't go nowhere. Everybody turned their back to him for his what? What did it say? Perverted. He was a perverted and sinful. Where you gonna go if you've been labeled as perverted and sinful? You know, Paul Paul write a letter about you in a minute. John and James, let it come to Jerusalem. James gonna say, nah, we can't do this. Let's have a meeting about it. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, you okay? I see what you did. It's just not the apple just not coming on. So they took care of things more administratively, and because Hebrew Israelites now, and this is this show you that I gotta swallow before I make this statement. The Hebrew Israelite movement, as we know it now, has been taken over by Satan. I'm gonna say it again. The Hebrew Israelite movement has been taken over by Satan. And one of the indicators is that within the body of Hamashiach, we are told by him, you all need to be one, as me and the Father are one. Ain't that what he said? Do Hamashiach and his Father believe in the same Sabbath? Yes or no? Everybody say it, respond. Yes or no? Or counter la'ah. Do they believe in the same new moon? Do they believe in the same Passover date? So when Paul says in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 10, let there be no division among you. Be perfectly joined together. Is he coming from the perspective that, to encourage and to encourage and to applaud divisions, or to maintain unity? Does he want everybody to come together? Come. So the way Satan has infiltrated the whole Hebrew Israelite movement spiritually is because ain't near one of them talking about coming together and doing what Christ himself said to do. Hamashiach said this. He prayed to the Father. Let's go to John real quick. We go to the book of John, because this kind of highlights what Paul is talking about. If they want to argue about the law, argue about genealogy. And I'm going to tell you something too. You may not want to hear this, but if you are Israelite and you can't prove it, or if you're a Gentile and you think that you're an Israelite, but you believe in the Israelite law and you believe in the God of Israel, am I supposed to sit there and argue with you about your genealogy? No. This is what Paul is saying. This is what Paul is saying. So the whole Hebrew Israelite movement is stipulated on you must meet this genetic qualifier. When I was at Central State University. And then I was in India. In India, I met a guy that looked black. That looked Hindu, straight up Hindu. But his grandfather was a straight up black man. And when I was at Central State University, I met a guy that looked, give me the charger cord for this. I met a guy that looked black, but his grandfather is over there. His grandfather was a coolie, but as they say, was East Indian, wasn't an Israelite. And all the times I've been going around Hebrew Israelites, they never once asked me what my grandfather was. They never asked me what my grandfather was or my great-grandfather. I know my lineage, but they just take it as, oh yeah, you never bothered. But let me come in looking like Drake's son, right? Because Drake's son looked like a white boy. Drake's son looked like a white boy because out of his grandparents, he only got one black grandparent. That's Drake's father. Drake's mother is white, and Drake's woman that he got that baby by got two white parents. So he got one, but the baby's an Israelite. All you need is one father from your father to be an Israelite. You're an Israelite. You're black. But that's how he looked. But they put him under this microscope. Birth certificate, everything. I noticed Ephraim, my brother from New York, he tried to join the Latin Kings before. And it was like, you black. Like, no, I'm from Puerto Rico. He was born in Puerto Rico, but his mother was from Trinidad, so it didn't look like the Puerto Ricans thought he should look. So they made him bring his birth certificate. How you gotta pass a genetic qualifier to join a gang? They made him bring his birth certificate to in order to proceed with his application for the Latin Kings. Almighty Latin King and Queen Nation. Right? Black and gold never fold. So he joined in the Latin Kings. But he had to prove his genealogy first because he looked like a Negro. He looked like he's more Trinidadian than more Puerto Rican. But Paul and them is saying, look, man, don't deal with all that arguing about the law. Check the person one time, two times. If it's a third time, I told you once, I told you twice. I ain't gonna tell you a third time now, man. So, and that's really the way baseball works. But Paul is saying one time, two time, third time, you out. All right. So you don't even get to swing the bat a third time. You swing once, swing twice, you miss. Okay, next person. Go back to the bench. So it's 2 strikes, you out, right? It's 2 strikes and you are out. I want you to look. I want somebody. Let's get John chapter because he talks about it in 14 and 16. Just one, he's praying to the Father. When he tells you in verse 10, believe that the Father sent me. Verse 26 says he's gonna send us the Comforter. And get the verse where it says, Father, make them one, even as we are one, so that they may be one in us. Anybody see that? Anybody see that verse? See how long it take y'all to find it. Anybody see it? It's between verse chapter 14 and 16. Very important statement that Hamashiach makes. Very important statement that he makes. All right, stand up and read it. Tell us where it's at.
John chapter 14, verse 11.
Well, let's let everybody get it that got a Bible. John 14, verse 11. Why y'all ain't got reading along with your books? You said John 14, verse 11? Is that the one we want? All right, let's see. Go ahead.
Believe me that I am in the Father, and the Father is in me. Otherwise, believe because of the works themselves.
Now, what about us? What about us? What's the verse about make them one even as we are one, that they may be one in us? You can sit down and find it. Anybody? Gave you the chapters. So Hamashiach is praying. He's praying to the Father. He said, Father, make them one, even as we are one, so that they may be one in us. So most of our Hebrews, like brothers and sisters now, they don't talk about that. He said it a few times too. He said it a few times. Okay, yeah, Marsha, you put that 17 on there?
Say it again?
You put that 17. Who put that 17 in there? That's the one we can get to now. Let's go to John 17.
John 17, 21 to 23.
Right. So we can skip the ones in the other ones in So what did he say? He said, neither pray I for these alone, but for them also which shall believe on me through their word. So I'm not just praying for these disciples, I'm praying for those that's going to believe on what my disciples are saying, right? And then he says that they all may be one. Who? What do you call a person that believes in him? A what? A believer. So he's praying for all believers. That's you, that's you. And as far as for Karash's kids and Masha and for Aaron's baby, you and your mammy. Because your mammy a believer too. All right. So he says that they may believe on me through their word, right? Those that believe on him, that they all may be one. As thou, Father, art in me, and I in thee, that they also may be one in us. How you gonna be one in the Father, and you got a different definition of right and wrong? This one say sunrise, this one say sunset Sabbath starts. So you got to push toward that oneness. Okay? Believe that thou hast sent me. And the glory which thou hast given me, I have given them, that they may be one, even as we are one. And that's why Paul comes back after this is written. This incident when Hamashiach was talking, Paul's letters always reflect this desire for unity and oneness. And to be on one accord spiritually with the same belief. Right? That's why you go into 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 10. Somebody read that from one of them. I can read it right here. Let's see what it says in the NRSV. 1 Corinthians 1 and 10. It says, now I appeal to you, brothers, by the name of our Lord, Yeshua HaMashiach, that you all be in agreement, and that there be no divisions among you, but that you be knit together in the same mind and the same purpose. And you may say, well, yeah, we all the same. We all together. We all together. Then Paul says, what I mean is that each of you says, I belong to Paul. I'm under the bishop. I belong to Apollos. I'm under the elder. I belong to Cephas. I'm under the apostle. I belong to Christ, which is what we all supposed to be saying. Right? Has Hamashiach been divided? Right? Did they take, okay, you're going to take the arm, you take the leg, and you got different names that you call yourselves now. Was Paul crucified for you? Or were you baptized in the name of Paul? I thank Yahweh that I baptized none of you except Crispus and Gaius, so that no one can say that you were baptized in my name. I did baptize also the household of Stephanus. Beyond that, I do not know whether I baptized anyone else. For Christ did not send me to baptize, but to proclaim the gospel, and not with eloquent wisdom, so that the cross of Hamashiach might not be emptied by its power. Plain and simple. Hamashiach is the Messiah. Repent, be righteous, obey the commandments. Do you believe that? Yes or no? That's it. And then the scripture says that since in the wisdom of Yahweh, the world did not know Yahweh through wisdom, Yahweh decided through the foolishness of the proclamation to save those that believe, which is him dying and on that cross for us. Okay? On that cross for us. If y'all get cramped over here, somebody just move. If y'all get another cushion or whatever and move, if you cramped, you know. I know some of y'all may still be at the age where you get a little sleepy, you know. Matter of fact, anybody get sleepy, man, you're supposed to be standing up. Which I guess is maybe kneeling on the Sabbath. Maybe not standing up fully, but you need to reset your blood. But Hebrew Israelites now, we don't push for unity. We push for a unity camp. But Paul says in the scripture, and I can close the book up. Who got to open to 1 Corinthians 1:10 in the NRSV or NASB? Read it. Please, read it, please. I urge you,
brothers and sisters.
Which he says brothers. I think, they put brothers and sisters there to put that inclusiveness. Go ahead.
By the name of our Lord, Yeshua HaMashiach.
Go ahead.
That you all agree, and that there be no divisions among you.
We all got to agree. How many Hebrew Israelites are working with their camp toward agreeing with other camps of Israel? What's the standard? We don't even know what they believe about the law because they don't publicize it. Read.
But that you be made complete in the same mind and in the same judgment.
In the same mind and the same judgment. You see that? So your judgment about things got to be the same. You can't over here say that, well, there was no betrothal because there was no written agreement. Well, there was no marriage because they never signed a ketubah, or there was no penetration, or she didn't ask her father. She got 5 kids. She ain't been asking her father. She got 5 kids. She ain't been asking her daddy who she can and can't be with. So the judgment got to be the same. So you can't run around different organizations, different camps, doing different things, and you getting different answers, different judgments, different levels of what is sin and what ain't sin. That's it for that verse. All right, go ahead, Shopka. All right. So, and Paul says this a lot. You can't be saying Paul, Peter, Cephas, and all these other people. It's got to be focused on Hamashiach. Hamashiach. Not the camp name or the leader of the camp name, but what do Hamashiach say? What does Moses say? What can we show in the Bible? Because the vow that you make is to the Most High. The payment you got to give was to the Most High. And then he had the Levites and the priests would get those payments, and they were processed, and your tithes were going to them. So now Paul is saying, look, we got a different thing we're dealing with now because we're more widespread. We ain't focused on one area. We got to be organized in what we believe and how. So what Paul is actually doing, he is reiterating the model, the example that he learned from James and them. Because James was in charge of the community at that time. James was in charge of the community. All right, not Peter. Peter was, a strong brother. But James is the one that came and said, okay, this is what everybody says, this is gonna be the conclusion. He does it, in Acts. He does it a couple of times. He does it when it comes to Paul going to the temple, and then he does it with the circumcision and whether people got to get circumcised. Gentiles got to get circumcised. So we have a clear hierarchy, a clear chain of command, order set up within the body. So in that order that's set up in the body, there is agreement and unity in what we believe and what we teach, what we stand for. There's agreement. But within Israel now, that's how you know that Satan is the one that's really running a lot of these Israelite camps. Because ain't there one of them saying, hey, brothers, let's get together and let's iron out this difference in doctrine that we got. I mean, you had, the House of David did it at one summit for the lunar Sabbath, but they didn't do it for their crescent moon that they started to observe after they joined Mashra Yasha'Allah. And they try to put Guerrilla Hebrew on the spot, but they didn't put themselves on the spot and come and question the crescent moon when they shifted away from the doctrines that we were keeping. You got to prove your new doctrine. They never did that. But then somebody else come with a new doctrine about the Sabbath. They put them in this, you got to prove this now. But the Bible has everything that we need to be doing, and go back to that. The way most Hebrew Israelites started doing things in the 60s and 70s, going into the 80s, was correct, the correct framework. But the walls, the structure just needed to be strengthened and filled in. And that's what we've been doing over the past, 30 years, 3 decades. We haven't come with nothing new. Over the past 30, and in the case of the Quran Thanyala, over the 40 years, the building was strengthened. Nothing was changed. The framework of the Torah was there. When you first came into the truth in the mid 80s, early 90s, all you heard was law, statute, commandments, law. That was drilled into your head. So when people started to come outside of the law, statute, commandments, we was like, oh, no, that ain't right. But now Hebrew Israelites got people coming outside the law, and they tolerating it. So now you got to go back before Hebrew, because remember, Hebrew Israelites mainly started to teach in the late 1800s. But what we came out of was, in America, was things that were influenced, had 2 major influences. The original Reformation that led to the Protestant movement, and then the Protestant movement led to the Anglican Church. And then the Puritans that came into America come out of the Anglican Church. They're Anglicans. So we're all descendants of the Anglicans. And then you got the Calvins and the Wesleyans coming from Switzerland, France, and Germany that had different movements that came, in the 1800s, and then that shifted the landscape. Presbyterians, everything come out of the Protestant movement. So the Israelites approached the Bible from a Protestant viewpoint, because the way we knew the Bible in slavery was from the Protestant, whether it was from Baptist or from Anglican, Presbyterian, or Lutheran, but it was from the Protestant perspective. But before the Protestant perspective, there was what? the Catholic Church, right? And before the Catholic Church, there was what? There was the Orthodox, and there was the Orthodox, and there was the Antiochian, and there was the Turkish church from the churches, and they started to bring in new doctrines. It wasn't a unified church. It was the centralized rulership of the Israelites from Jerusalem, following the doctrine they followed in Smyrna, in Cappadocia. All right, everybody Paul is writing to was under the authority of the Israelite bishops from Jerusalem. And then they started the Gentiles broke off. So Hebrew Israelites got to go back to the body of believers, the practices of the first century, instead of following what came in as ISUBK like to brag about 1969. Like that's saying something. 1969 go back to 33 AD. See, they look at that this man, and he set up his own thing. What he's doing now is not what was being done in 1969. Believe that. They brought all these different new things, but nobody went back to what Hamashiach and them was doing. It ain't 1969, it's 33. Forward. Now 33 forward, the temple was destroyed. Who was left in charge? Not nobody in 1969. So how you gonna jump from the first century of Israelite believers, the second century, the fall of the Israelite community that believed in the Torah? How you gonna skip over, 1,300 years of history and then say, okay, 1969, that's what everybody does. That's what the Mormons do. John Smith. That's what the Seventh-day Adventists do. Ellen G. White. I mean, not John Smith, Joseph Smith. And that's what the Jehovah's Witnesses do. Charles Russell. But all of them come from the same movement called the Millerites. All of them do. So you said 1969, you see, but you ain't, okay, even if you say 1969 is what Yohana teaching at ISUPK, why doesn't he push the book that that the person that they say started the 1969 movement, which he was around before that, why don't they push the book that he wrote called Marks of a Lost Race that was written by Bibbins? Why don't they push that book? He wrote a lot of stuff he believed in that book. And then why don't they push, why don't they push what Yeshaya and them took Marks of a Lost Race and they rewrote it, they edited it and added to it, and they called that one A Change of Worlds. But go back, you can get it online. Put in Bibbins, Marks of a Lost Race. I'll give you two if you ain't got it. And now you can see, okay, how he changed even what the foundational teachings were. Okay? But when you read Bibbins' writing, he calls Christ Joshua, which is like saying Yeshua. He wasn't saying Yahushua. Ariah came and said Yahushua later on. And he said Joshua because he knew that the name pronunciation was more closer to a Joshua in the Bible than a Yehoshua, which is what's written in the Hebrew in the Old Testament. He knew Ezra say Yeshua. So he said Joshua. It's in the book that he wrote. So they changed even what they say in 1969, but they changing stuff. But when you go back to the time of Hamashiach and them, what's the book that they had that they were using in order to teach people, the way they're supposed to walk in? That's called the Didache. And before it was the Didache, it was a Hebrew book called The Two Ways that the Hebrews was using to know when you're trying to keep the Torah. These are the basic things you need to keep in mind. It's called the two ways, the two paths. Then from the two paths, they changed it to the teachings of the disciples about Christ to the Gentiles. They made a whole nother book where they put stuff about Hamashiach's teaching in now. So it's just a general book that all Israelites believed. And then they took that general book and put in stuff about Hamashiach, and they called it the Didache, D-I-D-A-C-H-D. Did-A-C-H-E, D-I-D-A-C-H-E. Read that. Read the first 6 chapters. I'll be telling people, because that was written during the time of Peter, Paul, and John's lifetime. After that, wasn't written during their lifetime. It has good stuff in there, but I would take the first 6 chapters as almost being gospel. The 7th chapter, when they going forward, when they start talking about how to baptize and what to say with the blood and the wine and bread, you can edit that as you want. But the first 6 chapters are on point, because it was like the late 100s that they started to change stuff in the last chapters, the chapter 7 through chapter 14. The first 6 chapters is on point. Is on point with the Torah and the teaching of Hamashiach and the apostles. So you need a document to unify behind. You may not like the articles of belief. Fine. Let's use the Didache, the first 6 chapters. Let's see what Clement wrote. Let's see what Polycarp wrote. These are men that were trained by the disciples. John, Peter, and Paul taught Polycarp and Clement and Ignatius. But Ignatius, he went off and he started teaching we ain't got to do the laws. Then after him, you had Justin Martyr start to say the same thing and push that too. And then the Romans started to believe it. But the Israelite teachers, the Israelite bishops, they never started to believe that madness. But see, they didn't take heed to Paul's warning. Paul wrote that letter to Titus. When people start talking against the commandments and the law, preaching sin, check them twice and then don't deal with them no more. See, Polycarp and Clement, they didn't do that to Ignatius. And that's where everything went off at. They didn't keep the basic structure of order. And they did their own thing. But they still believed in the commandments, but they was tolerant of brothers that was compromising the commandments. And that's when everything, that same spirit was in the Catholic Church that set up the Catholic Church. That same spirit is the same spirit that's on the Hebrew Israelites now, because all of them compromised the Torah. All of them make an excuse of breaking the commandments. So take that same seriousness of the commandments and put it into what the law says about the about making that vow. Okay. It says about making that vow. All right, I see you, Daniela. I just seen you. I didn't know you left that message. He left a message about the that Marsha had left too. All right, about John chapter 17. And that's a good site too, Marsha. Marsha just put something about New Advent. Who got the history of what was going on is the Catholic Church. But what the Catholic Church did, you know what they did? They edited the history to where they promote the people that was for dismissing the Jews, dismissing the Israelites, for dismissing the commandments. They promoted them. They promoted guys like Jerome, Ignatius of um, of Antioch, and then Ignatius Loyola. All right, they promoted these guys that didn't want to keep the commandments, but they give credit to the other people, Simon and all of that. He got martyred and got killed, but they don't teach you what they taught. But look, if you look at New Advent, though, the website that Masha just posted, New Advent gives you the history of what happened. There were over 50 laws that the church in Rome, that became the Catholic Church also, there were over 50 laws that they passed telling the Gentiles and the Israelites, stop keeping the commandments. Stop circumcising. Stop keeping the law. Why were the Gentiles getting circumcised? What's the main reason the Gentiles getting circumcised? So they could, in good conscience, keep the Passover. And if their master was an Israelite and they start believing the Bible, the Torah, the Bible commands you that your servants got to be circumcised too. The Most High told Abraham that. So the Catholic Church was mad because Gentiles were starting to keep the laws also. So they passed laws saying, you can't do these laws no more. Y'all crazy. But nobody wasn't listening to them. And that's when they had this, after Constantine, that's when they had to start putting people in jail and killing them. You know, before Constantine, it was just kicking them out of Jerusalem. But they didn't affect their worship. They didn't say, well, you can't worship these. But they said that if you want to worship the God of Israel and keep the commandments, you know, you got to leave Jerusalem. So they kicked them out of Jerusalem, right? You know, so this is all information that, you know, that we got. So now Hebrew Israelites now, they got that same evil spirit of disobedience. They got the same evil spirit of disobedience, worse than what the Gentiles had, because you know better. You proclaiming to be an Israelite. And you know that the Sabbath is a covenant with Israel forever. And Hebrew Israelites are teaching people, if you got to work on the Sabbath, you got to do it. Okay, you got to do what you got to do. And that's wicked and evil. That's demonic. That's why we read in Titus, right? Paul said it's sinful. Go back to that. What's that verse you read in Titus? Right, it was read in Titus where he says that, I think it was, I can't remember the verses, where the verse was at. But as most people, you know, it's on the left side of the screen, left side of the page, where he said, kindness, foolish. He said, avoid, read that again. He said, avoid foolish questions. I'm reading in KJV. I should be reading the other versions. Genealogies, contentions, and strivings about the law. Paul said, don't argue with nobody about the law. He said, after the first and second admonition, reject that brother. Reject them. And Israelites don't do that. They're scared to do that. And when you start to do that, you lose numbers because that ain't popular. You telling somebody, well, if you don't keep this law and you argue with us about it, and you got some new doctrine you want to teach, we're going to reject you. And what do they do when they get rejected now? They did the same thing that the Gentiles did. We're going to set up our own organization. You know, somebody argue from them Gentiles, we're going to set up our own organization. Don't you know everything going on now, if you ain't Catholic, it all came out of one main man, which is Martin Luther. So the Gentile churches been split, and that's where that spirit of split come in from Hebrew Israelites. People try to glorify it. I heard of one elder say, no, it's good when it's split because that way the word get, what word? More Israelites are waking up. So what? Hamashiach said, if you wake somebody up to come back to the commandments, and then you make them more of a child of the devil than they were before you woke them up. 2 times a child of the devil. Okay. That's like somebody in their sleep that's dying, and then you wake them up and throw them in front of a firing squad. Which way you want to die? In your sleep or in front of the firing squad, and then you sit there for 5-6 hours with your heart hurting. You don't even know what it's like to have your heart hurt, your liver hurt, your kidneys hurting, your brain hurt. But you know you dying, your eyes hanging out the socket, or in your sleep, knowing I'm about to go to sleep. How you want to go? Peacefully in your bed, or we're gonna put you in front of the firing squad, or chop you up with machetes. You see? So you waking somebody up, but you waking them up, putting them into the fire. Yeah, we Israelites, but we don't got to keep the commandments. Yeah, we Israelites, but we don't got to keep this law. We got to keep that law. We got to keep that law. I know you got Israelites that want to be tempted to even say, you know, I myself have had Israelites tell me, actually come out their mouth and say, that was back then. Just like they say inside of so-called Christianity. Matter of fact, the word Christianity wasn't even invented by us. It was a Gentile that opposed the law that created that terminology. Early Israelite believers, when you look at their writings, were referred to as Nazarenes, as saints, and as disciples, as believers, not as Christians. All right. Well, let me see. Look now. It might take a few seconds. You'll see it changing and change back. So we got to get our house clean. And you got to go back to what was done and when it was done and who was doing it, how and why. And you got to be taught these things. You got to research these things. Yeah. I got to do that just to see the messages and stuff. I got to turn it horizontal. I mean, I got to turn it into picture mode. All right. So I can see the messages on there. All right, so you got to get the act together. And that's why we switched how we read the Torah over the 3.5 year cycle. And that's why we stopped using electricity on the Sabbath. And then went back to using electricity after looking at the older version of the Bible, and then started saying, okay, well, we can use it, but we can't start no new fires because the Hebrew is not as clear as the Greek. You know, I did a lot of extensive research on it. Myself and Karashala and Daniela discussed it extensively and looked at the Greek and everything, wrote papers about it to show that the Greek uses more clear language and the Hebrew likely used more clear language. And if it wasn't clear when the Septuagint was translated, the translators decided to use words so that you have the clarity in your translation. Okay. So with that, everybody, if you want to continue the conversation and you're a part of the Messenger group, you can come over to Messenger and we can continue this conversation for about maybe a few more minutes, you know, maybe 30 more minutes or so. And we ask that if you can turn on your camera, especially the brothers, turn on your camera. Your sisters, you don't necessarily got to turn on your camera. But if your brother, go ahead and turn your camera so we can be looking at each other in the face as we talking. So we're gonna conclude on YouTube and on Facebook. We are in the Davidic. We're in the Davidic covenant right now. It's great to know where you live at, where you are, because we're looking forward to the new covenant. But understanding the Davidic covenant, the different elements of it, and the grace and mercy of it, and seeing that grace and mercy being given to us throughout the Bible, and then understanding what we have to do as a nation of people, right now, as believers right now, kind of gives you more of a sense of bearing. Also, I told y'all earlier, you could blame Daniela. Understanding where we are in terms of the seals. We're right there, but certain things have to happen before we go into the wilderness. But we're right there. We're in the we're in the time frame of the fourth seal, and we're in the time frame of the fifth covenant, which is the covenant that Yahweh made with David. And we read about that covenant in the reading in Psalms, right? Psalms 89 or 88 in the Greek, about the sure mercies that Yahweh, made to David, and that David has to have a people to rule over. If David's going to be ruling a kingdom, you got to have subjects. And if Hamashiach is going to be the ruler of the world, you got to have subjects too. So we see that the Gentiles are also going to start to believe and walk in the Bible. We can look at, you see Zephaniah chapter 14. It talks about the Gentiles coming up to Jerusalem to keep the Feast of Tabernacles, or they're going to be punished with no rain if they don't come up. Okay? With no rain if they don't come up to keep that feast day. So Gentiles also are incorporated into the national government, which that goes into the you have global Gentile submission to the Torah and to the 12 tribes of Israel. That's what's going to happen. All right, so we're going to get up off of here. I know you may be able to turn on your WhatsApp for Adriana. Is that on this phone or the white phone? So she'll turn on the WhatsApp women's group, Adriana, if you want to participate in the post on the free Patreon segment. All right, the free Patreon segment that we'll have going on. But when you make a vow, you promise somebody something, especially Yahweh, you got to be serious about it, and you got to keep it. And in doing so, you got to understand the value of what you're promising, or what you want the Most High to do, and what you are going to give the Most High if He does these things for you. And a lot of people do that. Like if the Most High does this for me, like Hannah said. Hannah said, if you give me a baby, I'll give him to you. All right, I'll dedicate him to you. Now she could have kept that and get the value of that baby to the temple, to Eli and them, but she gave the son his life because she knew what she meant when she did it. All right, she knew what she meant. Blessings to you too, Nazarenos Israelitas. She knew what she meant. So you make this vow, promise to the Most High, keep your word. When you're talking to people, keep your word. Don't try to escape because of some type of a loophole or some type of red. Or you know what? Technically, nah. What did you mean? What did you say? You know. So So also we see in Judges, we see a very cautious warning of what happens when you speak rashly to the Most High. You're going to be held accountable for it. And what we see in Psalms, we see the recovery of the throne of David by the Messiah, and we see the persecution that the Messiah faced in the book of Psalms. All throughout the New Testament, we see faith in Hamashiach is paramount. Peter on the water, Lazarus, coming from the grave. And what was Luke? What was in Luke? Anybody remember Luke? Luke verses 1 through 8. Luke chapter 16, verse 1 through 8. What was that theme? The stewardship, being responsible for what is in your care, the people, the souls, especially your money, because this was about money. But he was not critical toward the non-believers. He helped the non-believers and gave them a pathway for forgiveness. So that's what you got to do. You got to give non-drug dealers, prostitutes, transvestites. That's the word that Shara, I forgot totally about that word because it's been replaced by transgender. But transgender used to be for men, and they were called transvestites. But then once women and men started to do it, they changed it to transgender. All right. So also people that are in different types of witchcraft, which is heavy in the Caribbean community. And heavy, not really heavy down south, but heavy in Dominican Republic, Haiti, Jamaica, Trinidad, different types of witchcraft people get off into. Bring these people into Hamashiach so that they can repent, be compassionate and loving in how you approach and deal with them, in your stewardship, the responsibility that is on your shoulders if you're the only person that's in the light and they're in the darkness. All right. Titus, Paul gives us a warning, direction, admonition, and counsel on how to deal with situations within the community when people don't believe, when they want to argue, all right, when they want to put opposition to what you're saying. Paul says, we as a community ain't going to deal with you. We're going to correct you once and twice, and if you continue, we're going to stop dealing with you. You kicked out. And this whole unity was within the whole body. But remember, he says contentions about the law. So he says correct that person. So Ignatius was supposed to be corrected by Paul's students because he was a student of Paul too. They didn't correct him. They copied his letters. Polycarp delivered Ignatius' letters sometimes to the different communities in Western Turkey. But he was supposed to check Ignatius according to the instructions that were given. Matter of fact, even Hamashiach said, if somebody starts talking against the law and breaking the law, they least in the kingdom. So as much as we can look to their writings, they fell outside of the spirit of Christ. And they started to tolerate people that were teaching people to break the least commandment. So we see even after, those people in Western Turkey, they went off early on. But the people in Jerusalem, they didn't go off. His family, his blood family. These people was his nephews, his cousins, okay, his brothers. They didn't go off. They stood true to the commandments and to the testimony of Hamashiach. They stayed true. So this advice Paul is giving is not to people that's breaking the commandments, it's to people that's keeping the commandments. And then the Gentiles just took over. The Gentiles took over for 400 years, 500 years, the Israelites were resisting the Gentile changes And then about 450 AD, people simply stopped writing about him. We don't really know the mystery of what happened to him. You know, that's something to investigate. And, you know, who was the last recorded leadership? Even the Catholic Church tell you the first 15, you know, up until Hadrian and up until 135 AD, they got the history on newadvent.com. Just put in Jerusalem. When you put in Jerusalem or Jerusalem bishops, they tell you the history, they know it. And guys like, you know, Eusebius and Epiphanius and all these types of guys with the wit name that we can't really pronounce good now, they wrote about all this history I'm talking about. So we got to bring Israel back to a point. We got to bring believers. She said the mic is going in and out. Sorry about that. But I hope you can hear me still through my regular voice. It's a little louder, but or they say it might be messing up the reception, you know, on the because it's messing up the microphone on the phones. Is this better now? Is that good? All right, so what was I saying? Okay. So we got the records of who was saying what. The history is there. But that's what we're doing now, putting everything together. We're not trying to do something new. We're looking at what was done and doing it that way as Israelites. See, everybody doing it, everybody that's come trying to do it has been doing it as a Gentile. And they were doing it just to oppose the Protestants. But they themselves were still teaching Protestant doctrine. But if you take what everybody got together, the Seventh-day Adventists, the Jehovah's Witnesses, and the Mormons, take everything they got together. Seventh-day Adventists say what? Diet and Sabbath. And the Jehovah's Witnesses say, well, he's not God, and we ain't supposed to be keeping these pagan holidays. But they don't keep the Leviticus 23 holidays either. And then the Mormons say we're supposed to be on a higher level, like a priest. And they definitely got the marriage part down, right? So everybody got elements, but now the Hebrew Israelites come in and they bring all these elements together. They got the full picture. And then what they do with that beautiful, beautiful piece of art that they are given, they start to scrabble on it. They start to scrabble on it. The women are exposing themselves, got their cleavage and stuff showing, right? You got they showing their legs. Who took that part? The apostolics came with that part. Apostolics said, you got to cover your legs, girl. Because they knew they look at the biblical standards. And they got that from the apostolics. They got that from, people that are trying to just introduce more modesty, especially seeing what was happening in the gay 20s. They said, no, we got to go back to this standard right here. And they went back. But now the Israelites come and they doing the same thing that the Gentiles did. They're not coming with the full picture of righteous practice. And that's what we got to do as Hebrew Israelites. We got to change how you eat, how you worship, change how you dress. Everything got to be done in a more righteous way, according to what is written in the Bible. All right. And I know it's been a lot of times. It's been a lot of times that people come and say, hey, this is the way, this is the way. But Hebrew Israelites ain't really doing that. They come and say, 1969. So our people ain't even going back far enough. The Mormons didn't go back. Nobody went back. You did have people in the 1100s, believe it or not, some Russians in the 1100s that went back. They tried to redo how Israelites were doing things. And I don't know if they were black or white. I know they were Russians. So you got different movements that happen throughout history that's been erased. Because why? The Protestants and the Catholic Church don't want you reading about people that are keeping the commandments and believing in Hamashiach. And that's why nobody is doing that, is being put to the forefront. Even though the early believers in Hamashiach, that's what they did. All right, so we got to be careful. We got to be careful, and we got to be humble, and we got to know what we need to do, and do it as it is written. And that's what's so difficult. You are a part of, or you've been given a task to do things in a very pure way, and it's a blessing because your eyes are no longer blinded. And it's not like it's some mystery. It's just common sense. You're not no revolutionary if the Bible say don't work on the Sabbath, and you say, hey, I can't work on the Sabbath. If you work, you're gonna get fired. Well, you gotta just get fired then, bro. Just what you can't break the commandments. If you work on the Sabbath, you might as well be homosexual. It's the same penalty. You might as well commit adultery. It's the same penalty in the spirit world and in the physical world. It's the same. Most I said death for all of these three. So this is the path that we're on. And if you're along for the journey, you will grow spiritually. And as you grow spiritually, you will start to be able to pray for Yahweh to get miracles done in your life. And these miracles will happen. Now, some of the miracles may need a physical medium in order to happen. What do I mean by that? Paul was a teacher and he believed in Hamashiach. But sometimes Israelites believers needed something physical. So Paul had these handkerchiefs, and if a believer got these handkerchiefs, then they would get healed. But it may not be the handkerchiefs. It may be, a natural tonic. It may be natural herbs. It may be natural, it may be just being isolated. It may be special baths that are gonna work for, things like eczema. And you may get rid of it, it may never come back. Okay. You may have some itchy spots that keep coming in your jaw or something. So now your faith in Yahweh mixed with this physical, natural medicine could help get you healed. So it may be something physical. Now you may actually have to fast and pray for a week, for 3 weeks, for the most. It may not be nothing on the outside. Maybe just fasting and praying for 3 weeks to get the spiritual change. But that spiritual change comes easier as you walk in the Torah, as you walk in obedience. Because now Yahweh knows you, especially keeping the Sabbath. The Sabbath is a seal, the scripture says. It's a sign. Circumcision is a sign, is a token. So you have all of these different things that we're supposed to be doing. And if you're doing these things righteously, and now you go to the Father and say, hey, I need to be healed, please. You may not need to go through physical things now. You can just go through right to Yahweh, through his Son. In the name of his Son, pray to the Father. And then that thing you need may get done quicker, especially if you're keeping the commandments. But if you're not keeping the commandments, if you're doubting, what are you going to get? That's James chapter 1, verse 5. If you lack wisdom, ask of Yahweh, and Yahweh will give it to you. But as you give it to him, you can't be unbelieving. You can't doubt. So if you doubt that the Most High wants you to keep the Sabbath because of your job, you ain't gonna get no wisdom because you're doubting. All right, so that's what we're gonna leave it at right here on Facebook. And I don't know who's over here. You can go ahead and turn the WhatsApp on. And then we're gonna sign off on Facebook and YouTube. So Yahweh bless you all. Have a good Shabbath. I said that like an hour ago, didn't I? Everybody on the call, don't go nowhere. We're gonna stick around for a little while. All right, Facebook, YouTube, shalom to you. I'm gonna wait about 30 seconds. There's a delay, and then I'm gonna go ahead and cut it off. All right. Shalom, Mashbaka. Somebody tell me when 30 seconds is up. All right, Daniela, not Daniela, Masha and Karashallah, Jay. Which one? This one? Okay. And Adriana, we're gonna turn you on too on WhatsApp. What y'all got to say? Let's put it on mute. What y'all got to say? He said, shalom.